to get started. It's 5:30 on Tuesday, May 28th. We're going to call this board workshop to order, and we're going to start off with a flag salute. Trustee Walker, if you would lead us.
Of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Item 2 on our agenda is the roundtable discussion among board members and staff addressing the following topics, and this is going to be for discussion only, so there'll be no action taken. It is a presentation and the highlights of the multi-tiered system of support, MTSS, framework in the Carson City School District. And ladies, if you want to get us started.
Good evening, Christy Perkins for the record, and I'm here with part of my team, Stephanie Keating, our MTSS coordinator, and Hannah Etchinson, our McKinney-Vento and foster care liaison. So we've put together some information just to update you with what we've been working on in the MTSS world. And here is a little picture at us at an MTSS conference this last spring. Michelle Cleveland has been overseeing our Project Aware for our mental health services, and Michelle is retiring on Thursday, so she is not here today. So we just wanted to kind of start with what we have been working on. The grants and special project department are essential for helping the Carson City School District meet the diverse needs of their students, support ongoing improvement efforts, and create learning environments where all students have the opportunity to thrive academically, socially, and emotionally. During the 23-24 school year, the grants department managed nearly $20 million in local, state, and federal grants. We complied with all levels of data collection, reporting, and allowable usage for 88 different grants this year. In addition, we've managed a wide variety of special projects, including Project Aware, the McKinney-Vento Foster Care Program, multi-tiered systems of support implementation, the evolution of our first district intervention assistant team, grant-funded travel, purchasing, and more are also all run through our department. So we thought we'd start with just how this kind of all ties together and give you some updates on ESSER COVID spend down and where we're at since we're wrapping up that funding, and that's been essential over the last several years in our school district. So what you'll see in the next few slides here are some charts. The grant is in that first column, what our award amount was, how much of that grant we've spent down, and then in the far column there, the usage for those grant funds. And there, it's pretty extensive list, so I'm not going to read those word by word there, but you can see the CARES grant was over $1 million. We spent it down at 100%, and that was used for distance ed coordinators, literacy specialists, a counselor at Carson High, IT tech, a gate, TOSA, and Chromebooks. And that's how the rest of these charts are run. When you look at the usage, you'll see that all of these purchases from grants have really tied back into our MTSS system and structures. Ones were probably more, CARES was our oldest one. When you go down to ESSER 2 and then ESSER 3, we're spending down now. And those funds have really gone to interventionists, distance ed teacher coordinators, admin assistants, computer science teachers, assistant director of EL services, TOSA's re-engagement specialists, before and after school programming, professional development for our teachers. So you can see there that everything we've done with this funding really has been aligned to support the whole child, their learning environment, and connect that school community piece, continue to grow that connection. On to the next page, you'll see there we had additional funding that was considered COVID funding that was specifically identified for students who were experiencing homelessness following the pandemic, called ARP Homeless 1 and ARP Homeless 2. The award amount is listed there, and we have 100% spend down in those categories. That was really for transportation, additional supplies, shoes, clothing, hygiene, and that was run through Hannah's program. At the bottom of this slide here, we had additional COVID relief money totaling almost $900,000. And those went to things such as dual enrollment, our Jumpstart program at the high school, teacher professional development, increasing our work-based learning program, teaching and training, dual enrollment costs, new hire mentor. We've really grown that new hire program, Ready to Rock Kinder, and even things for our community, such as getting every family a pass to the Children's Museum with some of that funding. So of course, all of these, we've tried to have that as our focus, all of this funding. How do we support the whole child, and how do we ensure that it is going back to our students in our community? But there's a bit more to the puzzle than just receiving the funds. None of this clearly would be possible without the dedication and the hard work of my team. And they're going to each spend a few minutes to just highlight their areas and what they've been working on this year.
All right, good afternoon. I'm Hannah Etchison. I'm the McKinney-Vento and Foster Care Liaison. So the McKinney-Vento Homeless Assistant Act is a federal law created to support the enrollment and education of homeless students. These students receive the same educational opportunities as house students by removing as many barriers as possible. Students qualify if they do not have fixed, regular, adequate nighttime housing. The program will also provide immediate enrollment for students experiencing houselessness. This includes students who are sharing housing due to the loss of housing from economic hardship. This is called doubled-up housing. McKinney-Vento also encompasses children living in hotels and motels, shelters, campgrounds, cars, public places, and shelters. Students who live in transitional housing will qualify. This will typically be the FISH shelter or Advocates to End Domestic Violence. We also encompass unaccompanied youth, so this is children that have been abandoned or forced out of their home by their guardians. So even if permanent housing is secured, their SIT status remains for the duration of the academic school year, and that ends on June 30th of every school year. And this chart shows our numbers. So this year we had 256 students that are currently enrolled. Throughout the whole school year, I enrolled 312 McKinney-Vento students, and 48 of those students are unaccompanied youth. So currently I oversee the foster care students in our district as well. So we have 22 that are actively in foster care placements. 14 of these students are elementary level, 4 are in middle school, 3 are in high school, and 1 student at support services. For these students, we provide transportation to school or gas reimbursements for their foster families if best interest determination rules that they should stay at their school of origin. So this can happen if a student is placed in a different county but still wants to remain in Carson City School District. We also do academic tracking for all of these students, and I will reach out to the family and identify the needs of the student, and that's provided via our donation account. And then academic planning also takes place with those school counselors for all of our foster care students. So this year we held a coat drive in December. We raised 190 coats, $1,200 in gift card donations, and $2,450 from that drive. We also received $10,000 from Slot World in June of 2023, $10,000 from Eagle Mark Savings Bank in April of 2024. This year we partnered with Holiday with a Homie through Rice Street Tattoo, and each McKinney-Vento high school student received $100 and they got to go shopping at Walmart. We completed the Holiday with a Hero, which was K through 8. We also received $2,000 for students in need that were not covered under McKinney-Vento, but they still needed clothing, and that was through Carson City Schools Foundation. This spring, we conducted the Step into Spring shoe drive, where each McKinney-Vento student received a $50 voucher to Big 5. We also provide free lunch for all McKinney-Vento students, as well as specialized transportation for students to School of Origin. We provide clothing, shoes, coats, socks, hygiene items, backpacks, school supplies, and grocery gift cards for families in need. We do weekly food bags on Fridays from Food for Thought. We also provide transportation to IEP meetings, medical appointments, or parent-teacher conferences that can take place through Capital Cab or through Jack Bus passes. We also help with documentation obtainment, so we can help with birth certificates, IDs, social security cards, and this year I did my first passport. We do senior grad needs, so cap and gown, yearbooks, scholarships, and we help students with prom as well. We do coverage for McKinney-Vento students who do not have insurance for therapy through Project Aware. We also provide enrollment in Boys and Girls Club before and after school program for McKinney-Vento and foster care students. This year, we offer the Opportunity Scholarship as well, which was $2,000 and a new laptop for college for our McKinney-Vento seniors. More frequent and consistent access to school social workers. Today, I just sent out the Summer Enrichment Activity Survey, so students could either do Boys and Girls Club, Children's Museum, or the Carson Aquatic Center. We additionally waive fees for students for after-school activities and sports. We refer out to Nevada Health Centers for the school-based clinic for immunizations, physicals, well checks, and other medical needs. We also connect to outside agencies for food, shelter, mental health services, parenting courses, case management, and temporary motel assistance. We support with required forms and applications for unaccompanied youth. And then we also have an agreement with Spirit of Hope Housing where we can provide housing for those unaccompanied youth, and we cover that through our donation account. So this is a breakdown of kind of how our students are housed right now. So the majority of our students, about 80%, are doubled up. And then hotels and motels, we have 28 students, shelters and transitional housing, 8, and unsheltered, we have 13.
So, and I know we're giving support to students so they can waive fees and attend extracurricular activities, but, you know, hopefully in transportation, we're also providing them that resource. So not only are we waiving the fees, but we're helping them get there. So.
Yes, we do Jack Bus passes, Capital Cab, and transportation, specialized transportation for all students. If they move out of their school zone, they can still attend their school of origin.
Quick question. Regarding the Spirit of Hope housing, who's the adult there?
So Ellen is who owns the program, and there's a house manager at each house, and she made an exception to take students in there if they're at least 17. She has a workaround where they can stay there. It is a group home of everyone of the same sex, so there's a female home, male home, and there's usually 5 to 8 people within the home. Everyone else is adults in the home, and then they have house managers, including her staff, who come into the home. They check the home. There's a lot of rules for our students who are able to go there. They sign a contract. They are drug tested. She does stock the pantry with food. They're given Wi-Fi. She pays the bills, and her staff then will transport them to any medical appointments, provide their medication. So her staff does assist with that for our students, but it's pretty tough for our kids to get in there, and they do have, it's only when their only other option would be living on the street. And then we do a month-to-month rent. It's a very reduced rent that she charges us, and then we pay through the donation account for their rent. It comes directly from the school district to her organization.
As long as somebody else got one, I got. I was wondering, seem to be an increase in the students that have qualified for this program, or a decrease over the last several years? What are we seeing in that respect?
This is my second year, and the numbers are about the same as they were last year towards the end of the school year. I am qualifying students later in the school year than I was last year. Last year, my last day of qualifying a student was April 23rd, and I've qualified all the way up until the 20th of this month, but it's about the same.
Okay, so next we want to kind of tie all this together, and then Stephanie's going to discuss how all of these supports fall under our multi-tiered systems of support and how systematically we're developing these systems so we can support as many students as possible.
Good evening, Stephanie Keating for the record. I am the Special Projects Coordinator for MTSS. And on your screen, you will see a nice infographic of everything that kind of falls under the MTSS umbrella and structure, which includes almost everything that we do within a school ecosystem. It all can fall under that tiered support. So you see the McKinney-Vento, you see academics, attendance, SEL, mental health supports such as Project Aware, restorative practices and justice, and then we've added in our community resources and partnerships that we've started to talk about already tonight. So just a nice visual of a way to think about all the teardrops and raindrops that fall under here, because we don't want kids to have teardrops and we don't want to be standing out in the rain. So that's why we have our umbrella of support. Right. You've all seen this triangle maybe a time or two over the years. It is the infamous MTSS model, which comes out of the public health model. And really, we universally want to be able to meet 80% of our students, whether that's in a classroom, in a grade level, in a whole school building, and then, of course, as a whole district. Obviously, we don't want to end there. We want to grow the green and get to that 100%, but we do know students are going to need some little extra support. So hopefully if that's 10 to 15% that just need that little extra dose of love, and then we reserve our last 5% for kiddos who really need us to wrap around them and support them and build them a very individual targeted plan. And that's anything from behavior to academics to social emotional or to mental health. So anything and all that we do. And we use the problem solving model, and that's the middle part of the triangle, to really identify those students. I always say teacher gut and intuition is a great thing, but we're just by nature wanting to save them all. So we need to have a systematic way to address the whole child and the whole system. This year, we've really focused on beefing up our social, emotional, and behavioral supports across the entire district. This is my first year, and I kind of take it like a bow and arrow, where we were pulling back that bow to really ensure that at that tier 1 level, the green, that we were growing that green and we were filling in what was kind of like a little bit of a Swiss cheese, and we needed to fill in those holes. And so we worked on some of these things, and then we have pre-planned for next year things where we can beef up based on what we've learned together and the data that we've collected. So you'll see at all 3 tiers, we have things we've done this year and then things we will be adding into our buckets for next year. We will be really beefing up our tier 2 level of supports and ensuring that we are using evidence-based interventions to maximize our time and our efforts. And we're ensuring that kids are getting what they need versus trying to scramble and putting something together and not knowing if it's effective or not. We have worked with our partners at the UNR MTSS Technical Assistance Center to help us navigate these interventions, find the funding, the programming, the buying of it, and the training, so we do not have to have a cost at our end for those things as it comes through our state MTSS partnership. This is our tiered fidelity inventory of our positive behavior interventions and supports implementation. This currently shows last spring, fall, and winter. We just finished this year's spring, and I'm just starting to analyze and put the data all together. But as you can see, in our first year in areas, we had some great growth, and then we really skyrocketed in the winter on a couple places, such as in Tier 1 in our teaming and our evaluation and our implementation. So that looks at our school-wide PBIS components. In Tier 2, you see a little bit of that dip in interventions. And that is because sometimes we just don't know what we don't know until we realize we didn't know it. And so we call that implementation, not drift per se, but just, oh, I thought this meant one thing and it actually meant another thing, and we need to recalibrate. So our schools have done some excellent work at kind of being reflective and realizing they needed a couple more tools in the toolbox, and then evaluating how those Tier 2 interventions are effective is the learning curve for next year. How do you know we implemented it with fidelity, and how do we know what our outcomes say? And then in Tier 3, this has been our first year exploring in that with 3 of our elementary schools, and they're kind of learning and growing, and we're going to continue to foster that. We know it's a lifelong journey, and we're never going to get to like we've arrived at the final destination, but we're going to continue to learn and grow together.
And the way Carson City rolled out MTSS was a slow rollout. So this is the first year that all of our schools are engaged in the MTSS process. And we have kind of slowed down a little bit because we realized at the beginning of implementation, it was just a lot of training, but not a lot of, we didn't have an MTSS coach dedicated to the work. We had schools that didn't really have all the training they needed. And by next year, we'll have all our sites at the same spot. We were just saying, oh, you were tier 1 last year, so now you're tier 2. And we realized that model was not very effective. We had to really look at the school and say, okay, we need to spend another year on tier 1, building up those structures before we just keep layering on more and more and more. So we've slowed that down. And then next year it will really be individualized to what that school site needs, not just where you are on this year track.
And that kind of brings us into where we've been this last year. You see on the left side columns, you have tier 1, tier 2, tier 3, and these are high schools, middle schools, and elementary. And what tier they've been focused on this year, I will say we've blended, made a hybrid just naturally because it's where we were and what we needed with the tier 1 and tier 2 group. A lot of our tier 2 sites were like, oh wait, we're missing this at tier 1. Can we go back and fill that in? And we're going to accommodate that. We are going to be good behavior scientists and use our data to drive where we go next. And then moving into next year, we are kind of getting rid of, as Christy said, the tiered, what groups you're in, and just we're all working on building the comprehensive system. And we're all working in kind of the similar areas, but what works best, what's contextually fit for our school site. So all the schools, minus the 3 elementary schools, are going to be working in that tier 2, beefing up that toolbox. We'll kind of break them down in more secondary versus elementary so we can have more context appropriate conversations for each of them versus a blended model. And then for our 3 sites that are in that tier 2/3 hybrid, they're going to continue to work on building what we call that functional behavioral assessment, the positive behavior intervention plan, but also going back and kind of beefing up that tier 2 as well. We felt it would be detrimental to them if we were to like, just kidding, go back, but rather build and support the plan that works for them. Kind of exactly what we do with our kids in our building and making sure they're getting what they need and when they need it.
And I like that because, you know, the system, it's not set. And your data could show you need to revisit tier 1. And so I think taking those labels out and allowing schools to really look at the needs of their school, their students, I think it's effective.
Yeah. In my years of MTSS experience, the label has never worked by what site you're at, but where are you at in your needs? And we're all working towards it.
So this next slide, I am really proud of this next slide as a district. And I know we came, when Stephanie first signed on last fall, we came and talked about the idea that we were going to start a district intervention assistance team. We've heard from staff and from the community, we need help. We don't know what to do with some of these students. We don't have the tools in our toolbox to manage some of these extreme behaviors or, this child is destroying a classroom. I don't know what else to do. I didn't learn this in college. What do I do? So we did come up with a model, the District Intervention Assistance Team, DIAT as we call it, where school sites, when they feel they have exhausted everything they know what to do, they've tried what they know to try, they have made every attempt, they can refer a student to the District Intervention Assistance Team. We meet on Fridays. We have a very large team and has representation from all categories. We have special education, we have school psychologists, we have academic, we have Stephanie, we have McKinney-Vento, we have Project Aware for mental health services, we have JPO from our community. We have a variety of people, counselors, social workers, that they can come and tell us a little bit about the student and what they've tried. And we can then have a discussion about, hey, what about this idea? Have you reached out to this company? Have you tried this? Should we move the child's schedule? Should we have a counselor meet with this kid every morning to start their day when they get off the bus? And it's been really effective. We have seen 35 cases so far this school year, and you can see it broken down there. Some were for behavior referrals. Those were students who exhibited extreme behaviors, and maybe in the past, as a district, we might have just said, you're suspended, you're on a long-term suspension, you're expelled, you're out. And we can't do that anymore. We know laws have changed, NRS has changed, and that's not best practice, and it doesn't generally change the behavior. So some of them were behavior referrals where we had to really address specific, pretty extreme behaviors. And that you can see those there for the behavior hearing requests. There was none from the elementary, 4 from the middle, and 8 from the high school. It doesn't mean that that student still maybe did not go to a behavior hearing, and then the behavior panel still made a determination for that student's placement. But we had a better plan to support that child and that family if they are to return to the campus or during that transition and get them in services and supports. We also had some other pretty extreme cases for situations that were outside of the school's control, home situations, where the school really just didn't know what else to do. The parents didn't know what else to do, and we were able to connect some of these families to really services. Out of our 35 cases, we have closed a lot of cases where the student has been successful. The plan has worked. They have started to engage in school. They have regulated their behavior. We have 8 cases we're still case managing right now that they're still on our radar. We're still supporting that case. And we have a plan this summer before we go back to school to look at those cases again and make sure they're set up for success to start the school year. Some of those students are transitioning back between Opportunity School back to the comprehensive school, and we don't want to just dump them there and say, okay, you did great at Opportunity School, now go. We want to make sure they're supported in that transition back to wherever their home school is. I will give Stephanie credit for the district intervention assistance team. She has been a phenomenal facilitator of that team. And the plan, it's very organized. I feel that sites feel they've been supported once they've come to the process. They were a little scared at first, like, I don't want to sit in this room with 40 people telling me what we did wrong. And it's not a gotcha thing. It's not a, well, you didn't do this and you didn't do that. It's a, how can we support this child? What else could we try? Let's have all our brains look at this situation and see if we can maybe look at it at a different way. And I feel now, at first, people were like, I'm not referring a kid there. But that's not true. By the end of the year, every single site has referred a student to the DIAT team. And we've seen a variety of people, put in the referrals, a teacher, a counselor, a social worker, an administrator who said, we need more help here. And how can you guys help us? And it's been pretty successful.
Agreed. It's also leveraged how they can incorporate their own site level IAT, where they can have some of these discussions amongst each other. We've had that in the past, but we've helped provide more structure and formality around it. So my prediction for next year will be that the sites have really had some very deep conversations and took a very systematic approach to supporting students, and that they've now really have truly exhausted every resource that they have to their ability. And we're gonna start seeing some of these more intensive, higher level need cases, where this year it was kind of like, we're not really sure what to do, but we've put now tools in their hands so they know what to do for future.
I have a question.
Yes.
On referrals. So when I was teaching, a student misbehaved, you write them up on a referral and it goes to the principal. And then the site administration decides on, the action of discipline. So now do all of those referrals then go to this, or how do they escalate? Like, how do you know which ones escalate to this program versus just held on site?
So the first level of support would still be through the site. And of course, you would go through your processes at your site and, writing referrals, school administration. These are really the more extreme cases when, as a school system, they feel they've exhausted everything. Students who've had multiple suspensions for similar behavior. Maybe they've been in 5 fights over the year. Maybe they are struggling with defiance. Maybe they're eloping from class constantly and you can't figure out why they keep leaving classes. And as a school, this is that next layer when you feel your staff and your administration has tried everything they have tried. You've had parent meetings, you've had parent contact, you've maybe done suspensions, maybe you are trying a variety of things. Maybe a kid's working in your office all day with you and you've moved the schedule and you don't know what else to do. You need more support for that child. So it would be outside of the site. But as Stephanie was saying, we are really working to, you want to, as much as possible, keep that power with the site, right? That site team is coming together weekly and looking at their high need cases, and then they're trying different things. And then when that is not working, then, how else can we support you? What other wraparound services can we provide after that has been exhausted?
And every site has a referral pathway for tiered supports, whether that be for academic or behavior. So that would be part of their referral pathway. and then their data decision rules around interventions, and after so many referrals from the teacher, what are some next level triggered supports?
So I guess that's what my question is every referral then part of this referral pathway?
Yes, it's
Yes,
all part
okay.
of their data decision rules, yes.
Okay, thank you.
Another area that the DIAT team supported sites was helping assist write a restorative plan, especially at the secondary level. There's been changes in our NRS that you do have to have a plan if a student has exhibited suspendable offenses. And that's hard to do where you're not, as the adult, just writing the plan and handing it to the kid and say, here, you're going to do this. Because the plan's really about the adult behavior, not the child's behavior. And so the DIAT team has really helped those sites write a plan where we can actually have measurable data, we can collect information to see if the plan is working and make tweaks, because just saying you're going to check in every day with your social worker doesn't always work for every child. Maybe they don't like that person. Maybe that's not their person they want to check in with. Maybe they're going to avoid them. So we're going to tweak the plan to say, okay, this is the person you're connected with. They're going to meet you at the bus instead. So just helping the sites write those plans too, because they are pretty cumbersome when you're having 2,000 students plus. Not all of those are getting plans, of course. But when you're writing a lot of plans and you have a lot of behavior, it's hard to write an individual plan for a wide variety of students. So we also assisted with helping create those plans and how we could support those plans being effective.
And all of this tiers back to the interconnected multi-tiered system of support, which leads in the mental health components. It comes out of the interconnected system framework, which launched the marriage of PBIS and mental health resources together. And then, of course, we're going to always include that academic piece because we can never tease really any of those apart to say one issue is the main issue over the other. They usually all incorporate each other.
And just for information, PBIS is Positive Behaviors, Interventions, and Supports, the acronym there.
And so the purpose of Project Aware, which is kind of the catalyst here, is to develop the sustainable infrastructures for school-based mental health programs and services. And so we're going to use our MTSS model for that sustainable structure. We're going to build a collaborative partnership that includes our state agencies, the local education agencies, and state mental health agencies, community providers of behavioral health care services, school personnel, community organizations, family, and school-aged youth. And currently, the Carson City School District is one of the leading districts in our state that has been able to do this. We have outsurpassed multiple other districts, rural and urban. Through our interconnected system framework, we're going to implement those mental health related promotion, awareness, prevention, intervention, and resilience activities to ensure that students have access and are connected to appropriate, effective behavioral health services. And our SAMHSA expects that this program will promote the healthy social and emotional development of school-aged youth and prevent youth violence in school settings. So our goals for next year, as we have really strengthened our system, is we've done a unified SEL curriculum in our schools. We are bringing on Harmony, which is out of Stanford University. It is a free curriculum to all school districts, and it is one of the highest evidence-based social emotional learning curriculum out there. So we are starting with our elementary schools so we can ensure that there's equitable practices. No matter what elementary school you're going to, you have access to this program. We will use our continuous systems improvements model to deliver PBIS structures and reinforcement, and we measure that through the TFI data, and then we have a district system fidelity inventory data that we use as our district leadership team to drive our work forward. So that's where a lot of that work came out, where we said, let's take labels out and let's just meet everybody where they're at and go from there. Our MTSS teams and school social workers will utilize a universal screening for next year. It's our SRSSIE, so Student Risk Screening Scale for internalizing and externalizing behaviors. Another free tool out of the University of Kansas with high research and data to help us identify students. We will be using the CASI model to support our early detection of the mental health issues, and that's part of the screening pieces for our BH Works, which is our platform for hopefully getting our Medicaid billing up and going here soon to get back some of our funds that we have been using. Additional training for our school social workers and TOSA coaches with proficiency using our skill streaming curricula to deliver Tier 2 groups. That does not have to be delivered specifically by a school social worker. Anybody can do that, so we want to maximize capacity and use in our buildings. And we're going to work on how we're measuring the effectiveness of this prevention piece while it's still being developed. We're going to employ to support training in CBIT, which is a cognitive behavioral therapy component with a couple of our clinical social workers that we have on contract and on staff. And then the bounce back is the non-clinical version, so our other social workers will be able to access that. We're gonna increase our use of motivational interviewing and coping cats, which is a grief group, to our mental health team for deliverables for next school year. And then our goal is that we generate revenue for the district using our electronic health records, which is BHWorks, to capture our billable services through Medicaid, and for the work that we're doing in our mental health professionals. And us and Pershing County are the two counties that are ready to start billing here within the next 6 months. So we're kind of crushing it in that category.
About the universal screener. So you're going to do 3 times a year?
That's usually best. If anything, the research indicates do it at least in the fall if you can only do it 1 time a year. But if we can get the gold star of doing it 3 times, that would be great.
And then are the school social workers the one who are going to follow up, or is it going to be like student study teams at the school?
It's going to be their MTSS teams. So we have a way where they will fill out the screener through the Infinite Campus. Ricky built us a very beautiful tool that spits out the reports, and then myself with their MTSS teams will analyze that data and make sure kids who are populating up on those lists, that we also see that they are populating up on other lists, because we always want to triangulate data on our decisions so we can ensure that students are getting their needs met.
So clearly we've been slow. Haven't been working much at all around here. But I think I'm really proud of the work that the department has done this year. We've made great strides for the district in supporting students. Another area that we didn't highlight in the slides here, but we did implement this year fully, was separating out major behavior versus minor behavior. Previously, we all tracked that all together. So for something very minor, a student might be, like, let's say they don't have a pencil. Let's use that as an example. They might be sent to the office to wait to speak to a dean or something, and missing a lot of instructional time, when some of those things could be handled within the classroom, and it doesn't need to be such a big disruption to the classroom. So we've really separated, we've trained our teaching staff, but our deans and our vice principals about what is major at your school site, what should be considered major where an administrator needs to deal with it. What are things that could go back to the classroom teacher can deal with that with support, and we can document it and make sure we're intervening sooner so it doesn't lead to a major behavior. So now we have those things separated, and we've heard feedback from especially our secondary sites, Carson Middle as one example, that reduced their major behaviors significantly, and it increased the amount of time that kids were in class in front of teachers. We've put some systems in place there that, hey, rather than just say, I'm gonna go sit in the office and wait for someone to see me, they have to fill out a little form. The teacher does a quick check to see, is this worthy of an administrator, or is this something we can handle right here in the classroom? And that has reduced those disruptions.
And we've worked with our teams on how to analyze that data on a monthly basis. So we're making sound, systematic decisions for areas of improvement. It's also led to the need for more class-wide PBIS professional development, which will be in the docket for next year, as well as the training for cycle of defiance on what do I do when a child's being defiant? How do I respond that's proactive and still honoring that student with dignity? And schools have already been accessing that professional learning as well.
So at this time, that's the end of our formal presentation, and we have some time for questions about how we're infusing MTSS in all structures at our school district, or any other areas you would like us to discuss further with the work we've been doing.
Thank you for the good presentation. I'm a big supporter of the program. I really am. But I'm wondering, how are you tracking the success of the program? Is it by the amount of referrals you're getting? And are you seeing a change in behaviors of some of the students at least? I think you mentioned you are. But I mean, what outcomes are you looking for to judge the success of the program?
So yes, we are tracking quite a bit of data. School sites are tracking, and then we're also tracking through our district intervention assistance team. Our goal is really flipping that triangle. When we first started implementing MTSS in Carson, you've all seen the triangle. We've seen it several times. It was really inverted. It was not correct. We couldn't identify which kids were in the green, which were moving up to the red. We kind of just were in one big blob. So we really need to get that more balanced, and we have done that work this year where we're more clearly using data to identify, okay, it's not all students, it's these students, and how can we group these students together to show success? Do they have something in common here where we could provide an intervention, track the results of the intervention, and then see if they are successful? We've started using virtual positive behavior interventions and supports at our sites where students can earn very easily a virtual point or signature or positive. And the teachers, the feedback has been great. It's easy to do. You can just say, oh, okay, you got a point, and they can do it from a device, from their phone. And it's very easy to do. It's not cumbersome for the teachers to have some separate system. And then we do have in all of our schools now built into their school system how students can earn those rewards from demonstrating appropriate behavior. And we have seen a decrease in our number of students who've been put up for a behavior hearing. That number has decreased significantly this year with students who then, we also have much fewer students than a few years ago that are on a long-term suspension or expulsion. And we've had great success from some of our students in Opportunity School as well, who in that small environment, very structured, they've earned credits and they are regulated and they're ready to re-enter a comprehensive school. So we have seen success across the whole district.
And we also use our TFI and our district fidelity system inventory to track that success. And next year, with really focusing on Tier 2, we will have an MTSS tracker where they are really seeing how many students are receiving Tier 2 or Tier 3 supports and ensuring that we're staying within that proportion of our student population. So we are being effective from our systematic lens.
Thank you for that explanation. And I have one other question, if I might. I want to go back to the ARP homeless grants. And I think you indicated that they're pretty well spent out. What are we doing for additional funding? Can we reapply for those grants? Are they refunded automatically, or what happens?
So we do qualify for the McKinney-Vento grant. We apply for that. It's a 3-year grant cycle. So next year will be our 3rd year of our grant cycle. Then we'll reapply. This ARP homeless money was in addition to what we normally get. Normally what we get in ARP homeless covers the salary of the liaison. These funds since COVID were in addition to that, and generally we've used our donation account to supplement and offset what we could not fund. So they are gone after this summer, and we have not heard that there will be opportunities for that outside of the McKinney-Vento funding, which we already have.
One of the things I worry about is, back in the day when I worked at the Department of Ed, Carson and Lyon County would go back and forth about who had the 3rd largest population of children who were experiencing homelessness. And so it seems like after COVID, so many of these families have kind of disappeared. And so whenever I get these reports and I see like 200 kids, and I know there's so many more families that are really experiencing hard times and these kids are getting affected, I worry that they're somewhere and they're not getting the services that they deserve. So, anything you guys could think of to help identify those kids, I think is super helpful.
So what we currently have in place is when a family comes to the front office to enroll their students through Infinite Campus, it is part of our enrollment process. There are some questions there that ask, but of course we know not every family is going to mark yes on that. So then if any staff member identifies a need, they do contact Hannah, and then she looks into each situation individually. She'll call, reach out to the family, does a home visit, whatever is needed to make sure they are. And even those students that don't qualify, we know as a community, we have a lot of families in a great need right now. Even though they may not officially qualify with this extra funding, we have been able to support those students. Unfortunately, without that extra funding, we probably next year will have to get back to just those who officially qualify, which will be tough because there are a lot of families that have a need. But she's very thorough in making sure if a social worker or counselor, anyone can put in a referral and say, I am worried about this child, something's going on, or they wrote about this in a journal. Can you look into it? And we definitely do investigate every single one of those situations.
And I make personal contact with each family as well. And if a family does move out of county, I usually follow up with them and follow up with the school as well that they're going to be transitioning to.
And I just want to add, your attendance at the Carson City Health Department the task force, I think is extremely important. They bring a lot to them because the community is there. Ron Wood Center is there, the counseling. And so their attendance, I think, is extremely valuable. They did a presentation a couple months ago, which I think was extremely well received. Just getting out there, so kudos for doing that, because I know it's taking you away from what you need to be doing, on that end directly with the students. But I do know that outreach, I think monthly, is extremely important for you to attend.
Thank you. We have increased our community partners and our MOUs this year significantly. We've brought several community partners on board with the school district, and I think that's been very successful. Even as I said, as part of our DIAT team, we have community members who sit every Friday on our group, and they can offer different things that we can't offer as a school district, and that is needed at times. So that has been very positive experience to, have a bridge between our two entities.
I guess one question. First of all, thank you for what you're doing. I think, the MTSS program is important, and I think as much as you'd like to have all these pieces in place quickly, I think, kudos to you for taking a breath, recognizing when things have to slow down and making sure we get it right. But in doing that, we are going to have issues that go on. We're going to have, especially when I think of discipline and the more severe behavioral issues, we have to address those. But are you able, we talk about students that need a little extra help, but sometimes depending on what's going on, these students are impacting others. Do you have the ability through the program, and I partially know the answer, to look at the other students? If you have one kid that does something and it impacts other kids, do you have the ability to follow up and check on those other kids and make sure those other kids are getting the services they need?
Yes, we've had several cases where we've done the primary kind of case management plan of care, and then the secondary, the ripple effect, where we've been following up specifically with a couple cases at the high school, where we've reached out to those families and worked with our contracted licensed clinical social worker, who's ensuring that they have some kind of plan of care in place as well for different needs. And then at the elementary level, we've done things where what can we do to support the class with the work, and that could be anyone from our DIAT team to come out, or I can come out with doing kind of a functional behavioral assessments or behavior plans that are needed to just kind of help support the whole classroom from those pieces.
No, I appreciate that. Thank you. Because I know, you think about schools, and I don't know if it's the case or not, but I just think, human nature, you want to kind of handle your business, and you don't want to reach out and go, oh, we need help. But I like the idea that there's that communication and collaboration to saying, hey, it's not, if a school is struggling with a group of kids or a kid and they need extra help, I like that kind of proactive communication going, hey, we're here. How can we help? So that it doesn't become a perceived stigma of
Right.
a school going, we couldn't handle this ourselves.
Yes, absolutely. And each case has been as a problem-solving team. Stephanie has gone side by side, coached. We have a contractor who's gone and taken data on students. She didn't need to do that, but she knew the school needed help, and they could not handle that at that moment. They also were dealing with active situation, and we were not emotionally attached to the situation, right? So it was easier for us to come in and support them so we could collect clean data for them. And so we've been doing that in our capacity as well. Something else we didn't mention through Project Aware, we have 5 partnerships right now with community, but we have many therapists, and this is of course with parent permission and for those extreme cases, that are coming into the school to provide the service at the school site, so the parent doesn't have to take off work and get their child to an appointment or try to be on a 2-year waiting list to get in. We've been able to bring the services to the school. That has been, I believe, life-changing for several students that are receiving those services, and it is generally free of charge to the family. And they've said, I've been on a list for 8 months trying to get my kid an appointment, and now they're getting it during, 20 minutes during their PE class or something. And that has really been helpful to a lot of families and students who need that level of care. Right.
Well, again, thank you. Do we have any additional questions or comments from the board? Okay, thank you. We appreciate the presentation. Thanks for everything you do, and please extend our thanks to, everybody behind the scenes that couldn't be here tonight that's doing this work. Okay, that concludes our workshop. It's 6:20. So we're going to go ahead and close the workshop and take a break and reconvene at 6:30 for our regular board meeting. So we are temporarily adjourned. 5:30, so we're going to go ahead and call this meeting of the Board of Trustees to order. This is item 3 on our agenda. We had a workshop just before this from 5:30 to almost 6:30. But now we're going to get started, and we'll lead off with item 3, adoption of the agenda as submitted. Okay, we have a motion and a second. Do we have any further board discussion? Seeing none, do we have any public comment on this agenda item? Seeing none, board, all in favor? Any opposed? Motion carries. Item 4 is the superintendent's report. This is for information only. Superintendent Fueling.
Thank you, President Cassiopo. Welcome, guests. I wish we had a bigger room. I'm sorry. We'll work on that. Not today, but we'll work on that. First, somewhere out there in the crowd, do we have our reps from Carson High School, our student representatives from Carson High School or Pioneer Academy here? We have
Yep.
Pioneer. Okay. So Carson High is absent? Okay. So my Pioneer reps, if you guys could come up to the podium for me real quick. So, as a thank you for a dedicated year of coming to really exciting school board meetings, the board would like to thank you for your service to keeping us aware of everything going on and the community aware of everything going on at Pioneer. So with that, we have these little gifts for you. And a special thank you. And board members, I don't know if there's anything you'd like to say.
I'll just maybe start us off. I mean, simply put, I just want to thank you both for being a part of our meetings and like Superintendent Fueling said, presenting what's going on at Pioneer. I think the schools, there's so much going on in our school district that it's hard to keep track of everything. But the reports you give, help give us a feel for what's going on, remind us of events that if we can get to, we'd like to be a part of. And I just think you've done a great job and you've represented yourselves, your families, and Pioneer Academy really well. So we're going to miss you. And if you're bored, show up and listen to some meetings. But thank you for being a part of our board meetings. Let's Mike and then Molly.
Well, and I was also going to say, not only just informing us what's going on at your school, recently at the sustainability summit we had in the district, the students from Pioneer, you included, gave a lot of feedback that helped the district form policies moving forward that are going to impact generations of students. So thank you for being part of the process and also contributing on a larger scale than just telling us about your school.
I just want to commend both of you on your public speaking skills. It's hard to get up here and speak in public, but you did it very well. And not quite sure what your future entails, but I would encourage you to, both of you did very well in public speaking.
Yeah, I would agree. I think public speaking is a skill that none of us really have. You kind of just learn as you go. And for you to be able to present and be what seems to us to be really comfortable presenting, kudos to you. You're leaps and bounds ahead of where I was when I was in high school. So again, thank you. And just to double check, are there any student representatives here from Carson High? Here we go. You had to swim through the masses. I get it.
Hello, everyone. There's not really a report today other than that we're all just working on finals and the year is coming to an end. And, we're super happy to go into summer. And also thank you for letting me be a part of school board meetings and being able to, give you guys announcements and just build another connection, Thank you.
No, thank you very much. Don't go anywhere. We didn't catch you in time. We didn't do a report from Pioneer, so you weren't obligated to do one, but we appreciate it. Before Superintendent Fueling says anything, Pioneer, I didn't mean to not allow you that opportunity. If you had a report from Pioneer, oh, that's true. We're not there yet. Thank you. I got a little carried away with myself. I'm not used to looking out and seeing 100 people. I just wanted to say the same thing to you as I did to Pioneer. I want to let you know how much we appreciate you and really everybody that's come from Carson High, but thank you for coming and presenting and being professional and prepared, and for keeping us not only informed, but just for representing yourself, your school, and your families really well. I think it's not easy to do presentations, and you as well have done a great job. You've handled yourself very well, and we appreciate it. And like Trustee Walt said, you guys have a gift for public speaking, and hopefully you'll, in some way, whether you're going that route or not, you keep doing that, because I think, it's rare for people to seem comfortable presenting, and you've all done a great job. And I just want to thank you for everything you've contributed to our board meetings. And we may have some other comments, board.
I also want to echo President Casiopo's comments, and I definitely encourage you to continue your leadership skills at the college level, because that's where you also will learn a lot more. So congratulations to you and to the Pioneer representatives.
Okay. Thank you very much. We appreciate it. Another round of applause.
Okay, other items. There are a lot of events going on out at the schools. Cannot get to every single one, but everything I have seen has been just a lot of fun. And so thank you to all the schools for putting that together. One standout to me, I just want to mention Mark Twain's social studies history parade. That was such a fun event. As a former social studies teacher, that was about as good as it gets. The kids did an awesome job, so I was very impressed with that. Item 18 on the agenda lists many of the coming events here in the last few days, so just board members, please be aware of that, and that is all I have. Thank you.
There we go. Thank you. We're going to move on to item 5, board reports, board member comments. This is informational, and we'll start off. Well, we heard our report from Carson High. Did we have anything else Carson High wanted to add? I'm guessing not, but I wanted to give her one more chance. Seeing none, we're going to move on to Pioneer Academy activities. Now it's time.
Good afternoon to members of the board. I'm Maggie Uzel, and
I'm Sadie Fullerton.
and here are Pioneer Academy's activities. We celebrate our seniors with our very first senior-only event, the Senior Sunset on Wednesday last week. We had a blast with those who showed up with ice cream sundaes, yard games, and karaoke.
Our graduation is tomorrow at 6 p.m. at the community center. Please come to show your support for our seniors as they finish their academic careers with the Carson City School District and walk across the stage. Graduates need to arrive at 5:15, but doors to the theater won't open until 5:45.
All right. Summer school will start on June 5th. To register, please stop by the office to pick up a form, or talk to Mr. Jordan or Miss Council. Class will be held at PHS Monday through Friday until June 28th, from 8 a.m. to noon. Students are to attend every day until they complete the required coursework.
Thank you. That concludes the Pioneer Academy activities and announcements.
Thank you very much. Next, Nevada Association of School Boards, NASB update.
Yeah, just real quick, on Thursday, the 30th, we're having the virtual workshop on the public records. I'm sure everybody's got all the flyers and everybody is signed up. It'll start at 6 o'clock, end at 7:30. And I think it'll be a pretty interesting workshop, so that's all I have for NASB.
Okay, thank you. We're going to move on to board reports. Trustee Crossman, you want to lead us off?
Sure. For Fremont Elementary School, Dr. Ward would like to report that they had a successful fun run. They raised nearly $6,000 for their school PTA. And while their goal was to raise $10,000 to see Dr. Ward sleep on the roof, they are still going to be rewarded by seeing Dr. Ward and Mr. Herzl doing lunch duty from the roof tomorrow from 11:30 to 1:30. So my advice is wear a hat and some sunscreen and hydrate tonight because it is going to be warm. Also, just with the fun run, I got to volunteer there and it was so fun. And little second grader Wyatt Roberts, I think, ran the most laps of the course of any of the kids. He just kept going. I was like, sign you up for cross country, kiddo. So that was fun. Also today at Fremont, the classes earned 45 minutes running an obstacle course bounce house. So they had a fun activity today that they had worked hard to earn. And tomorrow is their field day. And also, I would like to thank the Carson High counselors and staff for putting on the Salute to Scholars Night. That was very well done and was such a great way to honor the students in our district. And I also would like to thank our community. So many of those scholarships that they receive are from community members who want to further the educational efforts of our students. And so I really made me really proud to be from Carson City to see how well they support our students. So that concludes my report.
Thank you. Rich?
Yeah, I just have a quick report from Boardwalk Bray. Principal Roqueta stated that they had a phenomenal carnival last Thursday to celebrate good attendance. They could not have pulled it off without the help of many, many parents and grandparents, volunteers, and the work of all their staff. And she cannot express how thankful she is and the staff is for all their help. And they're looking forward to summer. And I don't really have a report from Fritch, but I would like to say that I attended their talent show and barbecue the other night and really enjoyed myself. They have a lot of talented youngsters, a lot of good dancers, some singers. And the barbecue was good. They had a lot of people who attended, so that was good to see so many people come out to support their kids at the school. And that concludes my report.
Thank you. Molly?
All right, for Carson High School, portrait dates for upcoming seniors are July 22nd through the July 26th, 7 a.m. to 6 p.m. in the Tech Center. Also, tomorrow is finals for A5, B2, Thursday finals for B4, B6. Yearbooks are still on sale. They have 50 yearbooks left on sale, so they are to report to room 136, pay cash or check to order the yearbook. And lastly, there is no breakfast served on Wednesday or Thursday for the last days of school. Mark Twain, there is no report, but still haven't heard. The field allocation is to go to the Board of Supervisors. I'm hoping that we hear soon that it will be going to the Board of Supervisors. I was hoping it would be before school ended, but hopefully it will be at their next meeting or soon.
From Carson Middle School, Ms. Robinson would like us to know that obviously things are wrapping up this week. Yearbooks will be distributed tomorrow morning and the yearbook signing party is going to follow. Thursday is the 8th grade promotion ceremony at 1:30 in the middle school gym. PTO is hosting the 8th grade promotion party at the Governor's Mansion for all the promoting students from 3 to 5 p.m. on Thursday as well. And she would like to thank all of the Carson Middle School families and the School Board of Trustees for our support throughout the year. And I don't have an update for Mark Twain today.
Mike?
Good evening. So first of all, I see so many colleagues and friends in the audience who are going to be retiring. And this time of year, I always think about how hard it's going to be to fill all those shoes. And before I report on Mrs. Zona's school report, you know, she is also retiring. And one of the things I just have to say to Paula is, you know, she came in as I went out. And so I think she literally did one walkthrough in my classroom. And so anybody who knows Lee Conley knows he's kind of larger than life. And my classroom was right across from the office. So I always knew when Lee was coming. The kids knew, they started getting hyper. And so probably 2 weeks before I left, one day, I was just teaching and the kids and I were talking, and all of a sudden I hear, "Thank you." And Mrs. Zona walked out. I thought, oh my gosh, she's never going to live up to this after Lee. And I was wrong, because here we are, what, 13, 14 years later? So congratulations, and hope your retirement's excellent. So Seeliger is thankful to the assistance of Mayor Bagwell for helping improve attendance. And so she was at the school today and she gave out 6 bikes and who knows how many movie tickets to reward students for getting to school. So we appreciate that support, very generous. So thank you to the mayor. And they just want to remind everybody, field day is coming up on Thursday. There will be a hot dog lunch served by the PTO. Bring your sunblock, hat, be ready for fun. That concludes my report.
Thanks, Mike. Lupe?
So from Eagle Valley Middle School, Dr. Conley reported that grade level awards assemblies were held today, this morning. Students were recognized for grades, attendance, and Mayor Bagwell also recognized students for perfect attendance. 8th grade promotion ceremonies are tomorrow at 1 o'clock. 8th graders who have earned their credits will be advancing to high school. 8th grade Fun in the Sun and 6th grade and 7th grade activities will be held on Thursday, May 30th, until they are released at 12 o'clock for summer break. He also wants to thank his staff for working so hard and giving so much to help the students achieve this year. It's been a tough at times, but he is so proud of the work that everyone has done and how they have supported all the students. So, and I echo his comments. I thank everyone who helped all the students achieve a successful year, and I thank everyone here in the room as well. That concludes.
Thank you. Just a couple quick things for me. First off, a little bit more about Pioneer. As you heard, tomorrow is their graduation ceremony. Pioneer is going to have 58 graduates tomorrow night. 3 of those are graduating a full year early as juniors. 5 were completed their requirements in December. And of the 12th grade students still enrolled as seniors, 54 out of 55 earned their diplomas. So congratulations to those students at Pioneer. You know, Pioneer continues to do some amazing things over there, and we appreciate, I mean, you saw that tonight with the 2 students that were here. So Jason, thank you for your leadership there all these years. And we'll talk about you another time, but you've been fantastic, so thank you. And then real quick, I just wanted to mention that the other night we had Salute to Scholars, where we got to watch all these students get recognized with scholarships and awards for their hard work. And if I heard correctly, there were roughly $10 million in awards given away to our graduating seniors within the school district. So congratulations to all those students. I think it's a fantastic accomplishment, and it just shows the great things that are happening in our district, quite frankly. So that concludes my report. We'll move on now to item 6, if I could get the right page. Association reports. Do we have any association reports tonight? Okay, easy enough. We're going to move on to item 7, which is introduction of the 2023-2024 Carson City School District retirees and employees who are leaving the district after 10 or more years of service. This is for discussion only. We're not really going to discuss it. We're just going to drive on and present. So Superintendent Fueling, if you would, lead us off.
Thank you, President Casiopo. This is a bit of a bittersweet moment each year. And I've seen this event now for 10 years I guess this is my 11th now. And some of the names, that have been very familiar to me over the years stepping away, and just the numbers of folks that have put in a lot of time to the district is really pretty incredible. I pulled out a calculator to try to add together the number of years, and the calculator actually broke. So I was just going to say infinity. They have been here infinity years, except we have 4 math teachers in the crowd, and they're like, that doesn't make any sense at all. He can't say that. So fortunately, Renee actually added them up for me. We got 880 years of time here, which is really, really incredible. So this evening, recognizing the service of all these fine individuals, we'll ask them to come up here and be recognized, and if they want to say a little bit, and we have a nice little certificate and gift for them recognizing their time. So,
hey, AJ, if I could
Yeah.
just real quick, I know we have a lot of people and there's a lot of people out there. If we're going to start off, I believe, with the high school, then the middle schools, then the retirees and whatnot from the elementary. If anybody's outside, like during, and needs to come in for the high school, if we could just make a little room for them so they could get in. And if anybody wants to come up behind us and take pictures while their person is being presented, you're welcome to. So sorry to interrupt.
No, thank you. And I would just say too, I know Dan Davis in the back here, for all of those folks who are getting recognized tonight, if you could please stay for one big picture at the end. We want to get everyone jumping up in the air and pumping their fist. Yes, like you're graduating. Yeah, exactly. Okay. So we'll start with Carson High tonight. And it's quite a list to see leaving all here at one time. It's like an appendage being ripped off the building. So we'll start with Kim Arnold. No?
She's gone.
She's going to be in trouble for that one. Okay. Does that mean we get to rescind the letter? Is that okay? Mr. Phil Brady. You come right here, sir. And if you would like to say a few words, I know you don't like to speak much.
Yeah, brevity, right? All right, I just want to say one thing. I've loved my 23 years at Carson High School. And if I had to do it all over again, I'd still do the same thing. That's all. Where should I go?
You can actually just go sit back down for right now. Yeah. Thank you, sir. Phil was one of the first guys I met in the community when I moved here long time ago. Next, we have from Carson High, Victoria Carr.
Oh, thank you very much. Thank you. It's just, it would be almost 18 years that I've been working for the Carson City School District. And they have been challenging, but I have enjoyed working for the school at CKS. And some of the wonderful staff and students I've worked with. So, but getting old here, time to retire. So it's like, yeah, but it's like, yes. So thank you so much.
Next, we have Cody Farnworth. After the meeting, I think we need to go looking around town for these folks. They might be celebrating somewhere else.
Are there still truant officers?
Next, we have Grace Greener.
No.
You sure?
I'm good.
You're good?
Yeah, I'm good.
Say that a little louder.
I'm really good.
Okay.
Thank you so much.
Next, we have Cheryl Leonard. Yes, you do.
I started out with New Horizons and then Pioneer and then the high school, 24 and a half years. It's been a great ride. And good luck next year.
Next, we have Mr. Jason Macy.
I'll just be real quick. I think the best part about being an employee here in the Carson City School District is all the relationships we formed. Looking at the board members up here, I know so many of you, the administrators, the custodians, the teachers, the students, so it's really about the relationship. So I loved my 29 years. Thank you.
Commander Dan Meyer.
Dab me up? No?
Oh,
All right.
yeah.
All right, I'll be the emotional guy. First of all, Grace, you are good. Yeah, she is real good. She is real good. I was talking to her this morning. This is a roller coaster ride for me. I won't be long, but I did 30 years active duty, 20 years teaching, and 10 years here at Carson. And I will tell you, this is the best district I worked for out of 4 districts, the best school I worked out of, board members. I appreciate when we have events, you show up, and I appreciate that as well. And that's it for me. Right here.
Next, we have Cynthia Mills. No? All right. That's 3. Next, we have a dynamic duo. First, actually, we'll just bring them up together. Emily and Joe Thornburg. Come on up. The height thing really kind of messes that. So let's here.
All right, this is 25 years at Carson High School for me, and it has been some great years. We do it because of the kids, and they have been amazing. And I've had your kids in class. I have students teaching at the high school now who were my students, and it's been some great years.
I truly want to thank all of you because I talk to other educators, and when I tell them that I have worked in one school district, they are floored. Like, I talk to teachers, it's like they're in their 6th district. I can't imagine working in a better place. So I want to thank you for that, first and foremost. I have always felt so supported in every aspect that I've worked here in 26 years. I told my students today, last day, that it's like, you know, my time with you, I felt like I was stealing money. The times when I felt like I earned my money was grading papers and working with Jason Macy. Just kidding. I love you.
And last from Carson High School, we have Hal Wilkins.
I would just like to say thank you. Appreciate all the support from the community at large. The 16 years I spent at Carson High have been some of the best. And as you can see from all the people before me, it's just an amazing staff to work with. Thank you.
Okay, moving on to Carson Middle School. First, we have Jen Kingman. I'll fix that.
This one that says mine?
No, I don't know what I gave him, actually.
Nice. I don't have nearly as many years as many of these people, but I've enjoyed my time working in Carson, and I'm happy to spend some more time with my own family, so.
Okay, next, we have Ricardo Makeup.
Don't tell me you had him working, AJ.
No. Okay. Next, we have Minka Shield Brown.
Thank you so much. Thank you. I wanted to thank Carson City School District. I'm going to get sad, but I have loved working here. It's been 27 years. I'm going to cry too. It's been a long time. I have loved it. It's really neat to see so many administrators that I've had working in the district and in this room and here tonight. I think I love that. I love the relationships with the parents and the students. Of course, they're the reason why we show up. I have loved it. It's been fun and it's been a blast. So I appreciate my family. They've been my anchor for sure. So listening to everything like, hey, I'm doing this lesson. You got to hear about what I did today. And I mean, they put up with me and they're my free labor in my classroom. So I appreciate them too. And I just love the people that I've worked with, the friendships and all the laughter. And it's been a lot of fun. So thank you so much. I've loved it.
Next, we have Lisa Schneider from Carson Middle School. Moving on. we have Mr. John Test from Carson Middle. How you doing, sir? Good. Would you like to say anything to the crowd?
Yes. I just want to thank the district. I would say that these were the best 25 years of my life, and in teaching was at Carson City. So thank you.
Next, we have another pair. We have Doug and Kim Whistler from Carson Middle School. I just want to say, I see track meet set up out my window all spring long. There's a lot of work getting done. I don't know who's going to do that when this is all gone, so.
Not us. Not our circus, not our monkeys anymore. So, thank you. He says I'm talking for the family, so he doesn't have to say anything. But it's been the only term we can think of is a great ride. The kids have been great. Our service here has been great, and we will miss you all. But we are excited to go be with our kids and our grandkids. Thank you.
Okay. Next, moving to Eagle Valley Middle School, we have Rod Butler. Okay. Okay, moving on. From Bordewick Bray Elementary School, Mimi Laughlin.
Is this real gold?
Yes.
There are so many people that I would like to thank. I would like to thank the district, the state of Nevada, and Great America. And I was going to put in more years, but when my husband retired 2 years ago, I was like, I want to retire now. So I'm so looking forward to spending more time with my family. And I would like to thank my parents who worked so hard to send me to college and graduate school so that I can be a teacher. And I really want to thank them. And thank you, everybody. That has been the greatest 19 years of my life. Thank you.
Next, from Bordewick Bray, we have Nina Stuckey. Oh, okay.
She's
Sure.
out of state.
That's a terrible excuse.
She's not at the bar, I promise.
Okay, we'll let Katrina. So should we just have you come up here right away?
I can go back.
Okay, why don't you go back? We'll make it look. Okay. Nina apparently is out of state, as for not being here, but, and I just got that information in the last 5 seconds. But moving on to the next retiree from Bordewick Bray, we have Katrina Troutwine. So, first of all, congratulations.
Thank you.
And this is yours. I'll leave Nina's under that.
Okay.
And then, oops, I have 2 gold coins.
Okay. Right on. Hi. Hi, Jill.
I have a former student. I have parents of former students. I have colleagues and friends, and this room is full of people who are awesome. And thank you for being here tonight. I'm not going to be very short, just a little bit longer than everyone else. In 3rd grade in Loveland, Colorado, I decided I wanted to be a teacher. And I never faltered from that. That's always what I wanted to be. I didn't care about getting married or any of that, like little girls dream of. Mine was a teacher. And you made it come true for me. In 1994, Kurt Kenny hired me to work at Bordeaux Bray Elementary, and I put in 30 years at Bordeaux Bray Elementary, teaching 2nd, 3rd, 4th, and 5th. And this was my whole life. My whole career was right here, and I thank you so much for making my dream come true.
Okay, next from Empire Elementary School, Rosario Espinoza Durand.
I work for the school, Carson City School District, 22 years. This year were the wonderful years in my life, and I enjoy a lot. And I just want to say thank you to everybody, to all of you, and to the Carson City School District. Thank you very much.
Next from Empire Elementary, we have Loretta Marson. Congratulations.
Well, I've seen the board many times. I've been up here as the rep for our union. So this is kind of like my final goodbye for that. I just like to say I've been in kindergarten all my time in the district, over 29 years. I've seen children, and now I have parents who have children in my class. It is just so rewarding, and I thank Carson for giving me the opportunity to help children learn and grow. And I've done numerous things before I got to be hired full-time. I was a noon aide, worked in the as a secretary, the library, and back in those days, I even worked in the nurse's office. So I just want to say thank you all, and I'm going to enjoy my retirement. Thanks.
And next from Empire Elementary, Mr. Shelby Tuttle. No Shelby? Okay, moving on to Fremont, we have Teresa Ordaz. Right here. Hey, how are you doing?
I'm doing good.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Would you like to say anything to the crowd? or the
Well,
board?
just that I was there 13 years at Fremont in the kitchen. And I've seen quite a few kids go through there. But I loved my job. And I liked all the people I worked with.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, moving on to Fritch Elementary, we have Susan Breen. And also from Fritch, Sheila Bridges. No? Okay. Moving on to Mark Twain Elementary, we have Denise Krebs. Moving on from Mark Twain Elementary, we have Doug Saucedo. In baseball, they'd call this a slump. Got 4 in a row. Okay. Moving on from Seeliger Elementary School, we have Lana Rausch. Thank you for breaking the slump, Lana. Congratulations.
Thank you, thank you. I just gonna let you know, I get nervous if you're over 3 feet tall, so I am a product of the Carson City School District. I have children that are a product of Carson City School District. My grandson's product of Carson City School District, and they're just killing it. I didn't plan on going to pediatrics. I ended up in pediatrics. I've loved it. I've loved my boss. I've loved my chief nurse. I don't want to cry because I'm an ugly crier. But I just want to thank you guys. It's been a pleasure. I'm a senator and a pirate at heart forever. Thank you.
Next from Seeliger, we have Rosanna Robertson.
Hello. First, I want to thank my Heavenly Father, Yeshua HaMashiach. I'm deeply grateful and blessed for the opportunity to spend 19 years working at Seeliger School. Has left an indelible mark on my heart and my mind. I learned a great deal from my college and all the staff. I grew considerably during these precious and unforgettable years. What a pleasure to work with such an amazing team, especially Mrs. Sona, our new vice principal, Mrs. Pryor. She is an awesome lady too. Jackie, Karen, Lana, and fabulous teachers. The impact of your friendship will last a lifetime. Mostly, it was particular pleasure working with los niños, the students. Thank you, and thank you, the district, and thank you, Mr. Walker, because you were awesome too.
Next from Seeliger, we have Mrs. Paula Zona. We have to keep this under an hour. Is that?
Thanks. In my 31 years as an educator, I've had the privilege of serving in 4 different districts, but my time in VCCSD has been some of my fondest memories because of the team of folks that I have been lucky enough to be surrounded by. I would first like to thank our students. You are the reason that I do what I do, and I love you. I would like to thank our amazing staff who helped create an incredible environment for our learners. I'd like to say a special thank you to Carrie. You are a special first mate, and I wish our time together had been longer. Thank you to our Seeliger community and our parents. Your partnership has made all of the difference. And thank you to my colleagues. I appreciate our talks and learning from you. Thank you to my supportive husband, Jason, who understands the challenges we face and helps celebrate our accomplishments. Thank you to the school board and district staff who champion our efforts every single day. You have been a joy to work with. It's been an honor to work with all of you. I will miss you. Thank you.
Next, and this is someone who I would almost recognize as a part of Empire because she spent a whole lot of her career there, but Mary Foster. Yes, real gold.
Because he told me I was going to get money.
It's kind of like money. It's sort of like money. Would you like to say anything?
Me?
No? Okay.
So I did spend 13 years at Empire, and I left Empire. Sadly, I miss my families and my kids there. I still see them all the time, wherever I go. I worked in the district office for a very short period of time, and then I decided it was time to retire. I retired in October, and thank you for inviting me here today. I mean, it seems like a long time. When I left, I thought, what am I going to do? And so I got a dog. And he's very cute. If you want to see pictures, I have tons. And I also got a very, very meaningful part-time job, which I'm enjoying very much. And it gives me plenty of money to go to shop at Marshall's, which if any of you know me, you know that that's where I pretty much live. Anyway, thank you very much for inviting me. I miss you all very much. Thank you very much. Thanks again.
Next, out of transportation, we have Mike Luke. Next from transportation, we have Jerry Powers. Next from transportation, we have Janet Matsky. Next from transportation, we have Jeff White. I know Jeff's here.
I just want to say thank you. 23 years of driving school bus, not only route, but extracurricular, athletic trips, field trips in between for the elementaries and middle schools. I was on the committee that hired Mr. Fueling, part of the association. It's been great, and I appreciate it. Thank you.
Get you here. Nope, that's Janet's. It's getting confusing with all the vacancies. There we go, sir.
Okay.
There's yours. And
Thank you.
okay, next from our IT department, Jackie Kleinfeld.
Hey, Peanut Gallery.
I'm not going to look that way because I'm going to cry. No. Thank you, everybody. It's been quite the adventure, and I'm not going to look over there because my boss is over there. And Dan's. Anyway, thank you. I've enjoyed it. I've loved everybody. I want to miss everybody. Thank you.
And someone who is in student support services now, but spent a whole lot of time at Carson High as well, Mary Ann Weaver.
Oh, thank you. Thank
Thank you. I'd like to start by thanking my kids because they got me through school in the first place. Lupe and I did our days together at WNC. Dork's daughter went to prom with my son. Molly, my daughter's babysat for her. So we go back. I have had the unique experience of being in the math department, in the LAD department. As administrator, I supervised health PE my first year, and the last 3 as in the special ed department, where I learned so much from my paras and from Dr. Lennox and from my students. And this year, as the DHH teacher, I got to go to all of the schools and was greatly welcomed by so many that I truly feel blessed to have been in this district for 24 years. And my students, my children as well, have been a product of Carson High School. And I thank you all for the memories, the blessings, the tears, and the joys. So thank you. We'll see what God's got next for the next chapter. So thank you all very much.
So that is about 880 years of blood, sweat, and tears for the kids of Carson City. I know, we have altogether about 1,200 employees in the district. And so that seems like a big number to me, and over 7,000 kids, right? Some of these people were here when we had well over 8,000 kids. There's a lot of children that have come through and been served by these folks, and even with so many people working for us and so many students being served. There's a lot of people I've gotten to know really well over the years, and many that people here just really appreciate their work, their dedication, and wish them well. And to know you can always come back. Just throw that plug in there real quick. But congratulations to everyone, and President Casiopo, I don't know if you'd like to say something.
Yeah, thank you. First of all, congratulations. It's nice to see a room packed with people who care and support the people in this district. We truly do have an amazing district. I've said it before, we're uniquely sized in that we're big enough to be able to do the work we need to do, but we're small enough to do it in a personal manner. We're one of the few communities that if you have a question, you want to be involved, you have a gripe, you have accolades, you can walk right over and say, I'd like to speak to the superintendent, because we send him for all the gripes. Send him his way. No, but you can come in the door and talk to anybody you want to. It's that kind of school district. And not only are we small enough to where you can do it, but we're made up of the kind of people that enjoy and appreciate that. And without everybody in this room, not just folks who have worked for the district, but spouses, significant others. I mean, it takes everybody to make this work, and we really appreciate everybody here, family members. I can't say enough. And so I just want to thank all of you who retired tonight for everything you've done for our students, for the collaboration you've provided. Many of you have taught my 3 children who went through the Carson School District. You've worked side by side with my wife, with my daughter, who's a teacher. And it really is a family. So thank you, everybody. I see people in the back of the room like Rich, who came back from retirement, to support those that are retiring now. So I could go on, but thank you, everybody in this room, and the many thousands who are listening right now. The rest of the board, if anybody has anything they'd like to add, but from my part, thank you. Let's see, Rich?
Yeah, I do. I just, same as President Casiopo said, thank you for all your hard work. I was married to a teacher who's now retired for many, many years, and I know how hard everybody in the district works. And for the last 25 years or 30 years, whatever you've been here, can relate to what you've been through. We appreciate all the hard work you've done. We know you did it for the right reason, for the kids. And I just hope you all really enjoy your retirement and come and see us whenever you can. Thank you again.
That's okay. I just want to thank, I see so many teachers that some have had all 5 of my children. Some have had most of them, and some of my children are very upset that Mr. Macy and Mr. Thornburg and Mrs. Thornburg are retiring because they're not up to their grade levels yet. But you know, our children are our best hope for the future. And I feel so grateful to all of the people that I send my children to school with every day, because I know that they care about them. And I know that they work so hard because of the kids. So thank you for a lifetime of effort to help the students.
Yeah. So, I could, but I taught with so many of you. My kids had so many of you as well. But it is bittersweet because I do think that, I would have, if circumstances were different, I think I would be here retiring because I started teaching in 1994 as well. So, and it was, I loved what I did. And I know it's tough, and it is, but please know that, you are the backbone to our youth. You are, every one of you, from every aspect of education, you are the backbone. And I appreciate everything that you've done because I've been there, done that, and I know it's even getting harder. So kudos to you. But I do think those of you who, I had the pleasure of teaching with, those of you whom I know from my husband as well, and those of you who have taught my kids and have been out there, I see you, and you were just always so approachable as well. But do know that they always say in the nonprofit world, you have to have service in the heart to succeed in that, and because it is a meaningful thing. But I do believe that every educator, everybody who touches education has to have service in the heart, and you all do. This district is very grateful for the years that you've given, and do know that you are going to be missed, because you've given so many years, like Mr. Feeling has said, all the years added up has been so many. But, thank you so much, because you will be, every one of you will be extremely missed.
Well, I think before everybody leaves, Mr. Davis wants to get a group picture of everybody. And I just want to add before we all get up, and we're going to take a little recess after this to let all that happen. But if you think this was amazing tonight, which it was, you should stick around for the rest of the show because we are talking curriculum and budget, and it is something you don't want to miss. At this point, we're going to take a recess and let pictures happen, and we'll reconvene. We're going to shoot for 10 minutes. Thank you very much.
Please make your
That would
way
be
back for
7:45. this meeting back to order. Those of you who are still in the room, thank you. You're going to be here for curriculum and budget. Please don't leave. Okay, next on our agenda, we're going to move on to item 8, public comment. And I know we have one person that signed up to speak. Renee, did we have anybody that submitted any comments? Okay. And just for the record, without reading the whole thing, we are with public comment. We limit public comment to 3 minutes per person. And we ask that when you come up, you step up to the microphone, state your name. And with that, the rest of that is on this item if you had any questions. But we're going to start with Ezekiel Vasquez. And Ezekiel, if it's not green already at the base, just touch that and that'll activate the microphone.
All right. My name is Ezekiel. I go to school at Eagle Valley, and I'm just here to say that I've been feeling like there's teachers and sometimes admin. They've been really behind my back, even though I don't have. I say I don't have a good past, but I still think that they shouldn't be behind my back all the time. I feel like they've been like bullies to me because they accuse me of a lot of things that I haven't done throughout the 3 years that I've been at that school. And these past last weeks, they're not letting me go to promotion because suppose we had an F in one of my classes, but the teacher that I had an F in that class, he was supposed to grade my work May 17th, which he didn't do, so I'm not able to go to promotion no more because of that. And he's changed my grades. We went to the school district, and before that, he changed my grade to lower. And yeah, I've been feeling like there's been teachers and admin, they've been not the nicest to us. And I think that is really been messing with me because there's been problems where teachers, they push me when I try to do stuff with them. Dr. Conley's been there, and he hasn't done nothing about it. And they say a lot of things that messes with my head. It's just their actions and stuff. I think it's been messing with me. So yeah, that's all I have to say.
Well, thank you, Ezekiel. I'm sorry that's been your experience at Eagle Valley Middle School. I hope maybe Superintendent Fueling, if maybe you could follow up with Mr. Conley and just, yeah, and yeah, maybe we can start fresh. I'd like the rest of your school career to be positive.
Yeah.
And I'm sorry it hasn't been the case for you, but I hope we can find a way to make it positive for you going forward.
All right.
Is there something possible that you guys could do for you to attend the ceremony tomorrow?
As a board, we don't get involved in operations, but I would have to defer to Superintendent Fueling and maybe with his conversations. I can't make any promises from this seat, but I would ask for that conversation to happen.
I did try to contact the principal on Friday. And
Just for the record, I'm sorry, could you just come up to the microphone and state your name?
Elias Moreno. I did try to call the principal Friday. He was in the office. I did call today. I left a voicemail. He did not call me back to talk about this situation that's going on. So I mean that's the reason that we're here today.
Okay. No, I understand. Again, I'm sorry you're going through this. If I'm going to defer this to Superintendent Fueling.
Yeah, we've already been having conversations about this. I can come and talk to you.
Okay.
Here.
Okay.
Yeah.
So Superintendent Fueling will come and speak to
All
you.
right, thank you.
Thank you very much. Do we have any additional in-person public comment? Okay, seeing none, I'm going to close public comment. We're going to move on to item 9, discussion and possible action to approve proposed changes to CCSD Policy 809, School Nutrition Services. This is a second reading, and this will be for possible action. We have Spencer Winward presenting.
Yes, thank you, Mr. President and members of the board. Again, I'd like to excuse Ms. Martinez, who could not be here this evening. But very simple, as we brought this to you at the last board meeting, you guys had one suggestion which we have incorporated, and in the packet that you were provided showed that change in red font, and it was simply to express that you wanted part of our mission statement to be to prepare students for optimal learning. So we've added that and made that change, and I am welcome to, or I am available to answer any questions you may have.
Board have any questions? If not, this is for action.
I can make a motion. I move that the Carson City School District Board of Trustees approve May 28, 2024 as a revised date for Policy 809, School Nutrition Services.
Motion and a second. Any board discussion? Seeing none, any public comment on this item? Seeing none, board, all those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you.
We're going to move on to item 10, discussion and presentation on the elementary math curriculum materials to be adopted for the 2024-2025 school year. As budgeted, this is for discussion only. We have Cheryl Macy and Tasha Fuson.
I have some samples for you. President Casiopo, members of the board, for the record, my name is Cheryl Macy, and I'm here to talk to you tonight about some curriculum adoption that we did this spring. It was a little bit hectic. We had to wait until March 27th when the state board approved materials for us to look at. And we had funds that needed to be used for this specifically, so we wanted to, we had to make the decision pretty quickly. But we were able to do that, and I think we picked an excellent resource for this. This was our committee. Shannon Slayman, our math curriculum and assessment coordinator, and I led the team. We had representatives from every grade level and every site. This is for K through 5 only. While we were waiting for the state to approve the materials, we built a 2-tier rubric. The first rubric looked at alignment to proficiency scales and to assessments. And then we had a second rubric that looked at student and teacher friendliness, fact fluency, online platform, visual appeal, Tier 1 instructional support, and differentiation. Originally, the plan was we would scale back based on that first rubric. We were primarily looking at alignment to our proficiency scale units that we've had a lot of teams build over the last 2 years, and we wanted something that would be a seamless fit. However, the committee decided they really wanted to do a deeper dive into more than just a couple of the resources. So we ended up basically using both rubrics as one. And this is just an example of the page. It was a 4-page rubric. It was very long, and I really wanted the committee to scale it back, but they were very adamant that we wanted to get the absolute best resource we could provide to teachers to support them in their math instruction, and they wanted to look at everything. So we kept it long. And then we had to wait until March 27th. So we built our rubrics and we waited. And then we had demos from 5 separate companies, and we narrowed it down to these 3: Reveal Math, Math and You, and iReady. They all had a lot of really great qualities to them. But ultimately, the committee picked Math and You. There is a dilemma to Math and You. And that is that it has only been approved by the state for 1st through 5th grade. Kindergarten was not approved by the state because it was too rigorous and not enough play-based learning involved in it. The company has already appealed the result and tells us that they should hear soon. Apparently, they were right on the verge of a passing score on the rubric, so we'll see if that will happen. So then Mrs. Lehman and I took this to the principal PLC when we knew that Math and You was one of our 3 finals, and had a discussion about what do we do? Do we keep it on the table? And the answer for that is yes, and that is because of the other things that I'll talk about in a minute about why we picked Math and You. So then the committee dug in, and we had a little over 2 weeks for the team to go back and actually teach from the books. And that was what helped us make the decision. We were really looking at something that supported teachers in strong instruction, that wasn't complicated to use, that was easy to follow with best practices embedded. And I have to tell you that I even taught a lesson in 3rd grade. They wanted a new teacher. 1st-year teachers never taught math before, so that was me. I've never taught math. I've never taught 3rd grade. And it helped me really understand why Math and You is such a great resource, because I really struggled from the resource that I had taught from. So as you can see, we had a lot of teams out there. And it wasn't just people on the committee. They took them back and asked their colleagues to teach from them and got input from all of them. And ultimately, we decided on Math and You. On May 21st, they met. We had a lengthy discussion about all of the resources and what we had learned from teaching from them. Ultimately, the committee voted 75% for Math and You because it has strong Tier 1 instructional support. It's easy to use. It has fewer extra add-ons, but it focuses on the basics, which is really what we need to be doing. And it paired seamlessly with our proficiency scales units, almost without any adjustment, and it's visually appealing. So then the decision came, what do we then do about kindergarten? So we had a lot of discussions around this. I will be setting up some optional meetings for kindergarten teachers. We don't want them to think that we didn't consider their needs, because we talked about this in length. And what we will do is consider our proficiency scale units, our core curriculum. SAVAS, which is the materials that they have now, will be their official curriculum materials. They can use Math and You as a supplemental, but not as their main textbook. And then if Math and You wins their appeal, we will adopt Math and You for kindergarten. And I will be meeting with the kindergarten teachers if they want to come meet with me within the next week. Any questions?
Yeah, oh, sorry.
No,
Yeah.
go ahead.
So the question that I have is just, briefly reviewing it as well as, a lot of times in the books, in the curriculum, where it becomes the chapter practice or the chapter test, they give you some, whether it be SBAC or proficiency testing questions. And I see that this doesn't have it. Did any of the others have it included?
It's on the online platform. they have those kinds of questions.
So then what is that? Then the teacher is encouraged to go to the online to get
This,
those type of test questions?
with all of the textbooks, they all come with a hard copy and then online resources for both teachers and students. And the students can practice with SBAC style questions on the computer, which is what you want because they take it on the computer. It's a good question, thank you.
Yeah, excuse me, 2 questions. How much did it cost? And then the second one is, for lack of a better term, I guess, is there a shelf life? You know, I know we purchased other material where after 7 years or something, you had to update it or whatever, so.
Tasha Fusum for the record, I'll take that one. So currently, the quote we got from the company is for 8 years, and the cost is just under $500,000. That does not include manipulatives, so we will have to purchase the manipulatives separately, and that's about an additional $75,000. So we're looking about $575,000 for this this program. That currently is budgeted out of our ESSER funds, so we are using ESSER to purchase any of the instructional textbook materials that we have that are up for renewal this year. So there's a few resource materials that will go into that that pot.
I'm glad ESSER is around still.
Yes, it's actually a really good thing. I think it's noteworthy that we did get quotes from the 3 finalists that our team was looking at, and actually Math and U was the least expensive resource as well.
Oh, thank you. That was going to be my follow-up question, was how did it compare with the others selected, so.
So if you look at iReady, just to give you an example, iReady would have run our district about $950,000 for that program. The other one was in the middle, Reville.
Okay.
One of the nice things about iReady is that it has that path individualized for the students. Is there something comparable in this system?
Not in this system, but we have ExactPath, which does the same thing that the iReady program does. Although we did consider iReady because the idea of having a textbook that was aligned with that intervention program was appealing to us, but ultimately we just didn't see it as the strongest of the 3 resources.
Any additional questions or comments from the board? Seeing none? Okay, thank you. Thank you for the committee's effort in reviewing these too. I know it's, like you said, you were crunched for time and the state didn't do us any favors on this one, so.
If I may add, this was a phenomenal group of educators. I looked forward to meeting with them, even though it was, you know, a lot of hard work. Just being in a room with these teachers so passionate about teaching math was inspiring.
No, that's great. And I really appreciate it. I mean, all my years on the board, just the committees that we put together to review these things. I don't know if that's common practice in other districts and whatnot, but I really like the fact that we do this. We're going to move on to item 11, discussion and presentation on the secondary health curriculum materials to be adopted for the 24-25 school year as budgeted. This again is for discussion only. Cheryl Macy and Tasha Fusum presenting.
Cheryl Macy for the record. Along with the math textbook adoption, we needed to adopt materials for secondary health. This has been a process that's been in the wings for a while as the health standards were reviewed a few years ago, but we were not going to adopt resources to align with those new standards until the state had approved them. This was led by Brittany Witter, who is our humanities curriculum and assessment coordinator. Just for a little bit of background, in 2020, the new health standards were adopted by NDE, and in April of 2024, NDE improved the instructional materials. There were 3 instructional materials approved for high school, 3 approved for middle school, and those were ETR, McGraw-Hill, and Goodhart-Wilcox. All instructional materials were requested for review. The committee created to review materials included a curriculum coordinator, our middle school, representatives from middle school and high school health teachers, a principal, a librarian, and a parent. The committee created a rubric to review each material and worked with instructional material platforms thoroughly to review them. Just like with the math materials, they get a hard copy, but then they also come with different electronic platforms. The committee selected materials and sent the family life portions, which is what I brought tonight, to the Family Life Advisory for review and approval. That will be the next agenda item. The middle school chose GW Publishers because it was engaging with its images, charts, and graphs. It had great discussion questions in each chapter. It aligns to the standards. It was literacy rich and skills based. One of the many things I love about Mrs. Witter is her passion for integrating literacy into all content areas. There was diverse representations of different populations. It was relevant and up to date in its scenarios. It had strong formative assessments, and it was student friendly, it was comprehensive, and it aligned to the current curriculum and proficiency scales. The high school chose ETR, Health Smart High School. This is it's slideshows with the student workbooks, which is what I brought with you. So it's not an actual textbook. It's teacher led instruction with the workbooks with it. They liked that it aligns to the standards in the existing curriculum, and they loved that it was clear and concise. They really wanted something that was straightforward. They also liked the teacher slideshows that came along with the student workbooks. It includes assessments and skill-based project opportunities. It has relevant scenarios. It represents a diverse population. They have videos embedded into the slideshow, which is nice. They don't have to go out and look for videos on certain topics. It's student and teacher friendly with the slideshows. Both materials have a separate human reproductive system unit, so they're not embedded. So for example, in the middle school one, that chapter is actually a separate chapter physically. So if a parent chooses to opt out of the family life unit, it's not even in the book for the student to see. This material, so it's not included. And then the Family Life Advisory Committee reviewed these sections of both of these books last week and approved them, and that's why we are bringing them to you today. Any questions?
So for the high school, the Health Smart, how long does each workbook? How many weeks is each workbook? Because it's all freshman year, correct?
It's not all freshman year, it's only a semester.
Okay, so a semester. So how long does each workbook take?
I think it depends on the unit, because a semester goes by really quickly. Right. And so some units will probably be more in-depth and teachers will use the whole workbook and sometimes not. We don't have time to teach the entire workbook. You can still cover the concepts without using every page of the workbook.
Okay, and then the slideshow. Is there audio to the slideshow? So it's already pre-recorded and then the teacher just kind of elaborates from that? Or how does the instruction actually look, I guess?
So it's mostly just a traditional slideshow. The teacher is still teaching, but there's audio with the embedded videos only. So the teacher teaches from it as if they would from a slideshow that they had created themselves.
So Tash, if you saw for the record, I also want to point out that when we adopt materials, instructional materials, these materials are not the class itself. So really what will happen, to get to your to answer your question, Molly, is that our teachers will have to take a look at their standards that they're required to teach throughout the semester. These are the instructional materials that were approved at the state level. Therefore, those are the ones that we are allowed to adopt within our district, but we still have to take a look at the standards. We have to take a look at our units of instruction, and then they will pull from these to support those standards and those units of instruction. They won't be teaching every workbook from from cover to cover, because not necessarily everything in that workbook is aligned to our standards per se. Realizing that textbook companies make instructional materials for the whole nation, and sometimes international, and not all states have the same standards either. So it's not like we have a company out there that is making resource materials that are exactly matched to our state standards and therefore can be taught from page 1 to page whatever at the end. So our teachers really have to go through and say, here is our standards, here's how we've broken down our unit instruction, and then here's the materials we have, and how do we pull from those materials to help teach what we're teaching to our students. So slides may be skipped within a presentation, pages within a workbook might be not covered, whole workbooks might not be covered in that particular semester. So this is actually a one semester course for middle school, typically taught at the 7th grade level, and one semester course taught at 9th grade level too.
Yeah, so just on that topic, so say we approve these workbooks, and there's something that's not a standard in there, but it's still open for that teacher to decide, like, oh, this workbook's been approved, I'm gonna go ahead and teach that. Or is that something where they are like, that's not a standard, we're not teaching that?
So our teachers are well accustomed to what their standards are, and the same thing goes for any subject that is taught within the district. So for instance, HMH is the material that we use for elementary reading. There's no way our teachers can teach from the first lesson to the last lesson and cover it. There's literally about 3 times the amount of material that can be covered in a year. So the same thing goes within the health system, right? So they know what their standards are. If that's not aligned to a standard, they're not going to use it. That's work we facilitate district-wide with our curriculum coordinators that work with our teachers to set out those units of instruction. Does that answer your question?
Molly and then Rich.
Sorry about that. So the committee that evaluated this, did they emphasize and think that journaling was really important? Because I see that it is. Okay, because I think that it is important, especially at the early ages. And so kudos to the emphasis on the journaling.
What they liked about the journaling that's embedded is that it's a way for students to reflect, but it's private. Right, and then if they want to share with an opportunity to share, they can, but these are sometimes very sensitive topics, and so it gives them an opportunity to do so privately. Yeah.
If I could, I had the opportunity to review the material this morning or this afternoon, and I was quite impressed with the middle school book. That I thought it was well written. I thought it was well directed at the audience, so to speak. I'm glad to hear it's only 7th grade, because I did have some concern about maybe a little bit risque for the 6th graders. But overall, I thought, it was well written. I thought it was going to be very easy to teach from, and I thought it was a pretty good book.
Go ahead, Molly.
Oh, sorry. One last question. Does every student then get a workbook? Is there enough for all the students to have, they'll each have their own and no copies will have to be made?
Yes,
Okay.
that is correct.
So now I'll answer the unasked question at this point in time. So for both the 7th and 9th grade materials, it's approximately $40,000. It is a 5-year contract that we'd be entering into. The difference between the math and the health, why 8 years versus 5 years, et cetera, is because when the actual adoptions are done, the state will be relooking at health materials 4 years from now. So by doing a 5-year contract, it gives us an opportunity to allow the state to do their process and then gives us a school year so that we're not trying to scramble like we were trying to scramble the last month of school to try to adopt new materials. So maybe that we end up extending with this particular instructional material, but 4 years from now, when it goes in front of the state board again, that 5th year, we would have the opportunity to decide if this is something we want to continue with or if we want to look at different options.
Okay, so that just generated another question. So the cost of that then, does that one-time cost then cover the repurposing and order of the workbooks every year? Or
Yes.
is there an additional cost?
No, that includes all the consumables for the 5 years.
Ashley, just out of curiosity, if, when you enter into these 5-year contracts or whatever, let's say hypothetically, some new outbreak happens next year. And I know they do updates every year, but for some reason, this particular company couldn't update their books. Is there like an out clause to where we could look at another vendor? I mean, let's say we adopted this 6 months before COVID broke out.
Right. All of the materials we currently select have online platform options to them. So that's included within our current cost. Typically, we're paying upfront. So in this particular case, we'd be paying right now, again, using ESSER funds for the 5 years. And then we just send numbers for the workbooks. As long as we don't surpass the number of workbooks that we've ordered, we don't have to pay additional funds. But say, for instance, if we grew as a district, we happen to get 100 more 7th graders than we anticipate, then we would have to pay an additional cost. But to answer your question, I mean, in terms of is there an out clause? Not necessarily, because we could just stop using them and look for something else, but we would have paid for it this year.
Right.
And it's included moving forward.
Okay, and that's fine. I was just curious how that worked. Molly.
Sorry, once again, sorry. But did you mention, and I'm sorry if you did, and I was looking through the book, so I apologize, but is there a Spanish version of the workbooks?
I believe there are, but we won't be purchasing them.
But they would be able to do online. They would have like an online option?
So I
I
did
don't
not see the
believe this
capability of
resource
that.
has an online workbook, no. What we have found is that often with topics like this, students don't have the vocabulary in Spanish, right? They don't have those more sophisticated health terms as part of their working secondary or initial language. So it really is better for them to read it in English. They're learning the vocabulary in English as they're learning English.
One of the books did have the glossary in Spanish and in English.
Cheryl, I would agree with you. Most students are able to speak English a lot better than Spanish. Their vocabulary in Spanish is not as strong as the English vocabulary.
Their academic vocabulary is stronger in English than Spanish, yeah.
Any other questions or comments from the board? Yeah.
I have one, yeah, so I know, did we combine 10, 11, and 12 and all of that right there?
Did we?
Which
No,
one are we
no,
still on?
we're on 11. We're and they'll get to that in 12,
Perfect. I
but we're
just wanted to
treating them
make sure.
separately.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, if there's no other questions, we will move on to item 12. And that is discussion and possible action to approve proposed health curriculum resources that include family life topics selected by health teachers and reviewed by the Family Life Advisory Committee during the 23-24 school year to be included in the family life curriculum for the Carson City School District. This one's for possible action. And again, we have Cheryl Macy and now Sheila Story.
Cheryl Macy for the record. I don't have another slideshow for you because it's all tied together, but we did take these materials to the Family Life Advisory Committee last week. We had to hold a special meeting for them to come and review these materials. Overwhelmingly, with one exception, the committee very much liked the resources. They like that they're clear, they're direct, and that the workbooks do provide a lot of support for both the teachers and the students. And you should have in your board packet a handout that articulates what the committee liked and what concerns they had about each of the two resources.
I'll start. On when they approved it or recommended for approval, one of the concerns was the content to options with pregnancy, limited parenthood, adoption, and safe haven. What other options did they feel there were?
They were talking about abortion. They were hoping that maybe abortion was put in there also, and it was not.
I like this here, so thank you.
Can I? Yeah. So, and you know, I mean, this isn't really about the curriculum itself as much as it is about the committee, but it brought to the attention when, you know, we appoint committee members. And it's really hard to kind of ask, you know, hey, what's your attendance going to be like? So I ask you today about this. So when you say the Life Advisory Committee, volunteering is hard and getting volunteers to show up is hard. And so I would like to know, did they show up? Was it 100%? Are we looking at? So I think that's important for us as board members to know. So then when we go to appoint, we're not appointing individuals that aren't showing up. And so what was the attendance on the, I'm not asking for certain names, but what was the attendance like?
We eked out a quorum. We we had to wait until we had a quorum to start the meeting. So yes, we had, is that 6?
Yeah, for the record, Sheila Story, I apologize, I didn't say that before. So basically, because this was more of an emergency meeting, it wasn't on our original schedule. We did ask them to meet on May 20th, and some individuals had already scheduled to be out of town. We did have a quorum of 5. And in regards to attendance, most of our members have had very good attendance, very good communication via email or phone to let us know if they're going to be attending or not. It is in our bylaws that if they do miss more than, they can attend, how is it stated? They have to be able to attend 3 meetings within a school year. And if they cannot attend 3 meetings within a school year, then we can potentially take the option of asking them to remove themselves from the committee and open it up to someone else who might be able to attend on a more regular basis.
Thank you.
That was a question we had asked. So I mean, it's hard from our point because we did ask that, and
I think the question is like, and I asked the question to each of them when they came up for the interview. I said, you know, you're applying for this. Are you going to attend? Well, of course, when you apply for something, yeah, sure, I'm going to attend because they want it at the time. But I think it's important to know whether or not they actually, you know, are attending, because if you're struggling to get a quorum, it's hard to get the things done in a timely fashion when you have to continue to postpone and postpone. So I think it's important to know that and to note whether or not you are, if they are serving the position that they signed up to serve.
so I'm just trying to, I'm wondering, is the question, would the determination have been different if they had 100% quorum, or we're just talking about attendance?
We, as Sheila said, have had overall really good attendance. My question for you would be, if we have somebody who's not attending, say maybe hasn't attended a meeting all year, how do we communicate that to the board?
I would think it would go through the superintendent or through, you know, the associate superintendent, whether or not, you know, they are not fulfilling the bylaws. If the bylaws state that, then I think it's noteworthy.
I just wanted
at
to
that
add,
point.
I think this is an important discussion, but we're here to approve this. And I think if I think having the topic of attendance is important, but if this is a concern we have and we want to hash through that, we might want to agendize that as a future topic. My understanding is for this, we did have a quorum.
Yes, we did.
So we're okay there. Okay, just to be clear. And Molly, I didn't mean to cut that short. I just wanted to make sure we're staying on task.
And Mr. President, just for the record, I don't think you guys ran afoul of the open meeting law. I think it was related to the topic that was presented. I see that it was starting to stray a little bit, but if you guys would like to follow up with what would happen with somebody not fulfilling their obligations, I'd be happy to help.
Sheila Story, for the record, I'd be happy to contact any individual who has not attended their meetings, followed up with the district office or the school board.
Do we have any other questions for either? Okay, seeing none, Matt, did you have something?
I'm sorry. So I know, I talked to you earlier today, Miss Macy. So just for the people listening, and the people that may listen in the future, all of this is opt-in, correct? So they sign a form that says, yes, I want my child to do this. They also have the ability to contact the teacher and say, I don't want them to do chapters 4, 6, and 8 or whatever. Is that correct? Okay.
That is correct for the record.
And then on that opt-in form, I'm wondering, is there something that states, or, and I don't know, because Ms. Fuson just kind of mentioned it that I understood it, but if it's not in our standards, it's not going to be taught. So if something in the journal was not in our standards, it won't be taught. Is there something on that form that states, like, there may be like chapters 4, 6, and 8 that are not in our standards, these will not be taught? Is there something like that, or no? Or is that up to the teacher that is, like, I guess, creating the material or going over the material?
I think the issue that we were talking today has to do with the fact that the standards are broad and that it might include some subtopics that aren't explicitly called out in the standard itself. So while it might not be stated explicitly in the standard, it's still covered in the standard. With that having been said, we can articulate in more detail on the parent opt-in form the content subtopics.
Okay, if there are no more questions or comments, this is an action item. If someone wants to make a motion, if they're ready.
I'll make the motion. I move that the Carson City School District Board of Trustees approve the health curriculum resources selected by health teachers and reviewed by the Family Life Advisory Committee during the 2023-2024 school year, which will be included in the Family Life curriculum for the Carson City School District.
Motion and a second by Trustee Crossman. Any further board discussion? Seeing none, any public comment on this item? Seeing none, all those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Okay, motion carries. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Going to move on to item 13, presentation of the budget preparation timeline and introduction of topics for the public hearing on the budget for fiscal year 2024-2025, including a brief discussion. This is for discussion only. No action will be taken. Spencer Ward is presenting. Spencer Winward. Hi.
I've been called worse. I thought you were just shortening my name to save time.
I was Ellis Island for a second.
All righty. Thank you, Mr. President and members of the board. For item number 13, we just want to kind of discuss the timeline of kind of the budget process. Kind of go over that a little bit as we go throughout that through the years, so you kind of know where we're at and where we're going. And then we'll get to the capital plan consideration and the budget itself and the resolution for it. So for item number 13, this just is kind of a timeline of the important dates and what we do in the budget process for each year. You know, even starting before January, we're starting to kind of prepping for the upcoming year budget. On February 15th, receive taxation revenue projections from taxation. That's not quite as important now, the PCFP, where a lot of those funds end up in the PCFP and don't come through the local channels that they used to. That's still an important date for us. And then, as you know, we provide a tentative budget to taxation by April 15th. You guys saw at the board meeting prior to that date. And then once we have that, we kind of do some fine tuning through April and May. And by statute, we must publish a public hearing notice between 7 and 14 days before the public hearing, which this is. And that's where we're at. So we publish that in the newspaper where everyone can find out about it. and then we have the hearing tonight. Following this, by June 10th, it's normally June 8th by statute, but since that falls on a Saturday, that rolls to Monday, the June 10th. The original final budget is due to the Department of Taxation. And then this isn't really relevant, but I left it in here for this year. On a legislative year, we have 30 days at the close of the session to file an amended budget if we want to. We did do that last year. So, really a year ago this time, we kind of like, here's our budget to check the boxes for statutes. And we're really going to do this when the session closes. This one, we really are doing it this month. But that is, because that came a little bit later, we did have a little bit more information available to us. That some items we don't necessarily have this early. And then, of course, by December 31st of this year, which is next fiscal year, we can amend our budget. Once our audit is complete, we know what our final ending balances are, and we can plug that into our budget. We know what our enrollment is. We also kind of have a really good feel for what our actual salary and staffing costs are. So we can make adjustments about 7 months from now. So for the budget tonight, this is the second year of the biennium. Usually this is a little bit easier because we have less guesswork into it, which is true. One thing that we're noticing is kind of new with the PCFP being relatively new to us. We are seeing some reductions to our PCFP funds based off NDE's calculations for the students that we have that qualify for those specific categories, which is at-risk, EL, English learners, and our gifted and talented education students. So collectively, we did see a reduction in that from that biennium adjustment. And then also, as you're aware, that what we've been dealing with is the increased funding from the legislative session last year is being offset by our decrease in enrollment.
When you're saying you saw a change of that amount, is it because a change in the amount of students, or they're changing their calculations?
It's neither, really. It's not a change in the amount of we have the same students, but basically those are kind of based off 20% of collectively of the state students. The poorest performing 20% fall into at-risk category. And so whether we have students that fall above or below that line can depend largely what happens in other districts. It can be kind of a two-edged sword. If we support these students well and they perform well, they move out of that above that 20% line, we no longer receive funding for them. Might not, I think the state's still kind of going to work through that, because that's kind of a flaw, because just because we got a student above that line doesn't necessarily mean that they no longer need support, or else they're going to fall back down. So that's kind of a thing that I'd like to see change in the calculations in the upcoming years as they fine tune that. And the second thing could be is just, if a district larger than us or adjacent to us or whatever, their students perform really well, then they start to bump our students above that 20 percentile line as well. So it's not a perfect system, but they're working to get there. So, and they did that adjustment to kind of see where our students were, and based on that, we received less funding. Does that answer your question fully? All righty. Any other questions regarding budget timeline?
It's more of a comment. Doing this before the Memorial Day weekend was extremely hard, and I don't feel as though I gave you adequate time to answer all the questions that I have moving forward. Because yesterday was a holiday, and normally I go through the packet over the weekend. If I have questions, I'll ask them on Sunday and Monday and give you time. I didn't want to disrupt your holiday yesterday, so I did it today. To be fair, and I know this is hard because you're working with the Department of Taxation's timeline as well, and then we have all of the, the celebrations, moving, whether it be the students and employees of the year and all of this as well. But moving forward, if there is a possible request, I would ask that we don't do this the Tuesday after a 3-day holiday, because even like tonight, I have a lot of questions, and I'm, trying to be very appreciative of everybody's time, but I don't feel that I adequately was able to get those addressed, and I don't want to put you on the hot seat this evening, because I'm not guaranteed that you're going to know the answers to that as well. And so moving forward, I would just ask that we don't get the budget after a 3-day weekend.
Definitely something to consider. There are some difficulties kind of with the timeline is because we have to do it by a certain date, but at the same time, we do it so early for the state that we have information trickling in the last minute that, there have been Memorial Days in the past where I've spent time working on the budget. Fortunately, this was not one of those. So I feel your pain in the timing of when this has to be done and when that falls with the holidays from time to time. It's something we can certainly consider to, kind of discuss offline a little bit on any ideas you may have or what we can potentially do to prevent that.
And I do, and I want to respect your time and ours as well in giving us preparation. So by all means, I mean, I'm just mentioning it because I do want to respect your time. This is a lot of work, and I appreciate that. And I appreciate the time that you put into it over and over again and keep giving us updates as they come forward. So please don't take it as, a negative at all, because I do. This is a lot of work, and I respect that.
I share your sentiment that the timing is less than ideal.
Any
All right.
further discussions for Spencer? Or questions for Spencer? Seeing none, thank you. We're going to move on to item 14, discussion and possible action to approve the revised capital improvement plan for the Carson City School District for fiscal years 2024 through 2029. This is for possible action. We have Spencer Winward presenting.
Thank you, Mr. President. Spencer Winward for the record once again. I do have a slide here at title number 13 that we could have gone over on the last item. However, it's very relevant to item number 14 for the capital improvement plan. Let me go ahead and I'm just going to move on to this, and then we'll go back and kind of cover some of those things in those slides. So the capital improvement plan, as you know, is included in the budget, pages 60 and 61. And this reflects the work that's done or is being done by our Facilities Master Planning Committee, which turns into the Bond Oversight Committee, depending on where we are in that process. Currently, we call that committee the Bond Oversight Committee because they're overseeing how we're spending those bond funds. We meet from time to time, and between now and the December budget, we'll meet at least one more time to get input from the community and all of the stakeholders of that committee to make sure that we're getting the most out of our bond dollars and doing projects in the order that's the most beneficial for the district. And so this project reflects that. It is a 5-year project. You'll notice that we're very heavily involved with what we're currently doing. And then once kind of the dust settles from this summer's projects, and once we meet with that committee again, we'll kind of refocus on the projects that we have coming up in the next 1 to 4 years. Something you'll notice at the top of page 60 in the revenue section, there's a pay-as-you-go column. Those numbers, we're very fortunate to have a great bond company that helps us generate those numbers. And sometimes we have those this time of year, sometimes we don't. Last year, we were fortunate enough to have them because we were doing this a month later. So you'll see that the FY25 number is the same, just because rather than throwing a number out there, I like to have it confirmed from our bond wizards before we go that. But that number should increase. We'll reflect that on the December budget. And what that money represents is money that's in our debt service account that's over and above what we're required to have by statute to pay our debt service, make all of our bond interest and principal payments. Whether it's, there's a couple of different schools of thought on whether you strip all that out or you keep it there or not. Currently, we're just kind of letting that build because that also can affect your future bonding capacity. If you want to go out to bond for a certain amount and you pull that down to the bare minimum, it might prevent the amount you can bond for in the future. So that continues to build. Again, that should be probably somewhere between that 3.6 to 4 million somewhere by the end of this year of funds that are available for that. Again, nice thing, it's our money. It's sitting in local government liability, or excuse me, that's a different LGIP, local government investment pool funds, which follows our policy for investing and covers all the state statutes and it is performing very well. Somewhere just north of 5% is what that account is currently bringing in. Again, the CIP is a living document, so just because we have something on there now doesn't mean that we have to do that. A lot of times our priorities change. We have something that comes up that takes precedence, or we have something that we have an opportunity that is presented that can save us funds by doing something now and pushing a project to later. So this is very fluid and can be moved. You know, we recognize that you guys have approved everything on here at this point, and then when we do make changes, we bring those to you as well. Skipping back a couple of slides I had, so what we've been doing right now, Mr. Johnson in particular, who couldn't be here this evening with us, has been focused on doing the preparation for the projects that literally the second students walk out the door, there's going to be construction workers walking back in, mostly at Carson High School. Our largest projects over this summer are the north parking lot reconstruction and the bathroom project at Carson High School and the chemistry room upgrades there. So those will be starting the minute that school's out, and we'll be going right up until school's back in, with the exception of the bathroom project, which we're guaranteed to have some working restrooms, but they'll be finishing things up in the first week or two of school without affecting our school operations, well, affecting them as minimally as possible. That's really kind of what's on docket this summer. One kind of thing that's really difficult in building this plan is our fiscal year cutoff falls right in the middle of it. So you have a project that might be, an example would be the chemistry room projects. It's budgeted for $600,000. And currently $200,000 of that lives in this current year's budget, and $400,000 of that lives in the next year's budget. So we kind of make our best educated guess of how much of that is going to be available, or how much of that are we going to need by July 1st. And if we guess too little, then we kind of have to borrow funds from other projects to replace them after July 1st to make that work. Or if we guess too much, then those are generally kind of locked up until our audit's finished and we show that by our audited numbers, we only spend $150,000 of that $200,000. When that audit's done, we have that $50,000 available to spend. So it's just kind of a budgeting game. We kind of split those. Sometimes we go a little too heavy or too light, and we can adjust with kind of some of our other projects. And then it's all put back together once July 1st rolls around. And really once the summer construction season is over and the dust settles and bills have been paid, we're able to update that and see if we had funds remaining from any of those projects that we can allocate to others. Any questions about the capital improvement plan?
Rich, did you have a question?
I do. Under the expenditures on district-wide cycle, at the very bottom of that section, we have the CHS land acquisition. No money was allocated for that. Is that still in the works? And then on the other side of that, are we receiving that money from the Lomper Ranch development for the houses are being built?
That is still in the works, and thank you. Trustee Wall had that same question earlier today as well.
I kind of stole it from her.
As you recall, the previous year we had the Lomper Ranch line item there, but also there's some property available that currently belongs to St. Teresa's. We're in the process of getting an appraisal for that. We're hoping to have it from here, and I pulled that $150,000 off of there, hoping to plug in the updated number that would include both of those land transaction items. So currently it's blank.
Spencer,
I'm
sorry.
so sorry. I just want to clarify before things start blowing up. It's St. Paul's, not St.
Yeah, not St.
Teresa's.
Teresa's.
Yeah.
I apologize. So I'm just trying to be as exciting as the first part of this meeting was, so hopefully that did it. St. Paul's Church, I apologize. That was I guess
We made a promise to the public this would be an exciting part of the meeting, so
Yeah.
thank you for that.
So thank you, Mr. Fueling, for the correction there. So the property belonging to St. Paul's right there adjacent to Carson High School. We don't have that number yet. I was hoping to have that to plug those those two total amounts in there, and I just left the $150,000 off. So in December, we'll have those. We'll update this at that point, and we'll have that budgeted, whether we decide to go through with either. As to the rest of your question for the $1,000 per lot that we're receiving from those developments, we do receive that, and then at the end of this fiscal year, we'll be paying that to the trust account. That might not be the exact term, but we collect those, the city collects those funds, gives those funds to us, we give those to the developer, and we true that up at June 30th of each year. None of those $1,000 actually hit our capital improvement list. We did have the $150,000 on there, which would be the amount over and above the $1,000 per lot that we collect.
if I could just clarify something too, just with the question of the timing of some of these things. So if by chance, say we get to September and we are looking at, this potential purchase of acquiring some of this land by Carson High School, we would be coming back to you for approval, and with that approval and a dollar amount, that effectively makes it real, and we can do it. There is then budget authority. So even though you're approving this at this moment, capital projects work a little bit differently. So whenever we would come to you with you to approve a capital item with approval of funding to spend on it, it makes it immediately good to go once that approval has happened. We don't have to come back and have an entire budget again just to have something changed within that amount.
Thank you, Mr. Fueling. That's correct.
That's okay. I just have a question on the upgrades to the restrooms at Carson Middle School, the bathroom remodels. Are we looking at doing the same type of thing that we've been doing in other schools with the,
General use restrooms?
yes, the completely individual floor to ceiling walls with the sinks on the outside?
Yes.
Is that the plan?
That's the plan. That would be a next summer project.
Okay,
So this is in there to get that started.
okay,
Design, architecture. And then if it did become yep, we're going to do this over the summer of 25, 26,
It's
that
ready.
budget authority is there to get that rolling.
okay. Thank you so much.
Molly?
All right, thank you. And thank you for responding so quickly to my email today. I appreciate it and covering it this evening.
No problem.
So a few other questions that I had though is, so if we looked in the budget, which will be presented in the next agenda item, when you go to capital projects, there's a opening fund balance of $529,908. Where does that show in revenues?
The opening balance of $529,908.
Yeah, where is that in the revenues
So
here for the budget of?
The capital improvement plan covers two budgets, our Fund 360, which is our bond projects,
Mhm.
and our capital projects, which is Fund 300, which is funded by those basic governmental service taxes. If you look at the top of page 60, it shows the beginning balance for, and it's kind of color coded, and I apologize.
No, it's all good, yeah.
You guys do have a color copy. I just want to
We
make sure
do.
that, okay.
Mm-hmm, okay.
Yeah, so anything that's orange is the funding for that Fund 300, and the
Okay.
blue is Fund 360, the bond funds.
Okay.
So it shows that opening balance of 529,000. That's what's left over. What we have estimated is left over. Now,
Mhm.
once our audit actually rolls around, we'll have a true number and we will update this with what that amount is. It might be slightly more. We maybe had $150,000 budgeted for some improvements and they came in at 143,000. So that number will get updated and will change slightly based off of how everything closed out for fiscal year 24.
Okay, so you are pretty confident, because last year the rollover was 203 is what we proposed. And so it's about a $300,000 difference, and so you're pretty good with that?
Yeah, feeling pretty good with
Okay.
that. It could end up above or below where we have estimated based
Okay.
off of how everything settles out.
Okay. And then, one, I wanted to commend you with what was presented last year for some of the expenses. You were actually able to bring those down quite a bit and save money. So, I commend you on that. Like the restrooms was lower. It looks like the tenant improvements were quite a bit lower in each site as well. So,
Before I
that
pat
was good.
myself on the back, that could be that some of that is in FY '24 of that project
Okay.
and the remainder is in FY 25.
Okay. Well, either
So
way, though, it looked
we-
good. Looked good on paper.
We do our very best to be very, very budget conscious, but of
Okay.
course, capital projects right now are very tough to come in under budget.
Okay, and so, like I said, though, thank you for addressing all those questions. And so the only thing that I have left then is, I'm so unbelievably disappointed not to see the soccer fields at Carson High School, because they still haven't been addressed. The sprinklers are still above, kids are still tripping over the sprinklers, and the grass is still not, there's a big old spot, so.
So we do have some funds set aside in two areas here that could work for that. We have some landscaping funds that are set aside specifically for those kind of things. On here, it just says landscaping funds. It's not outlined out because it's a little bit better to be general in that regard. And then also we have some tenant improvements at Carson High School that could be potentially used for that. Alrighty, if any other further questions?
Being none, this is for possible action.
I'll make that motion.
Go ahead, Laurel.
Let me just make sure I got the right one. Yep. I move that the Carson City School District Board of Trustees approve the revised capital improvement plan and the opening balance fund 300 capital projects for fiscal years 2024 through 2029.
Second.
Okay, motion and a second by, I heard Rich Varner first. Any further board discussion? Seeing none, any public comment on this item? Seeing none, all those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Okay, motion carries. Spencer, again, thank you.
Thank you.
Item 15, discussion and possible action on the final budget, including adjustments to the tentative budget for the Carson City School District for fiscal year 2024 through 2025, including adoption of a resolution approving the final budget and transmit a letter. This is again for possible action. Spencer Winward.
Thank you, Mr. President and members of the board. Spencer Winward for the record. Let's go ahead and get right to the meat of this and get to the bottom line of the general fund. Again, this is the iteration of the tentative budget that you've seen previously, and we had some changes to those kind of bases. We fine-tuned things and have got more information and know that our information we had is the most correct that we have. So the last time we presented this, the deficit was about $740,000. And I would love to be able to say that we've lowered that, but that's not the case this time. So 2 out of 3, I'm going to say, is not bad. The general fund total revenues are $80.8 million, up $500,000 from last time. And the general fund expenditures are $82.9 million, which is up $900,000 from last time. And so if you were to look on page 2 of the budget, that's kind of a worksheet for what our deficit is. That would show our deficit is $2.1 million. And that's what I'm going to go ahead and call the taxation deficit. That's what they would consider the deficit based off of what the document we provide to taxation is. And there's a couple things that factor into that 2.1 million. The first of those is our $1 million contingency. That's in there, for just in case we need to spend that. I have never dipped into that. Just talking with Mr. Fueling, there was one year that he was in charge of the budget where they did have to dip into that. So it's not very common. But it is in there, and if we did spend that $1 million, then that would take our deficit to that 2.1. Off the likeliness that we won't be touching that reduces our deficit from 2.1 to 1.1. The second thing that's in there is our carry forward funds of approximately $210,000. And if you reduce the 2.1 million by that brings our projected deficit to 900,000. So we are just slightly, a couple $100,000 more than where we were at the presentation of the budget last time. So that's where things stand. A couple of things that affected that. So across all funds, we've updated salary and benefit numbers. On average, they're slightly higher. I don't know that they're higher for every single fund, but on average, everything's just a little bit higher than what we presented last time. However, I feel very confident with those numbers that we have. That's the best estimate we've got for our next year's salary and benefit spending. Keep in mind, salary and benefits is going to be roughly 85% of our budget. Based off, that's our largest expenditure. In the general fund, we had some slight increases to account for higher utility and fuel costs that we're expecting, and an increase because of our transfers from services, as we're transferring from some services from ESSER to the general fund, we've anticipated a little bit of higher cost of that as those, we can no longer use those funds after September 30th of next year. And we've increased our transportation costs a little bit to allow for the purchase of some special education buses. And then our transfers to the pupil-centered plan funds are slightly higher than what we presented last time. And that's largely to, as I mentioned earlier, that by mid-biennium change reduced the amount of revenue we're receiving for those. Aside from the minute adjustments that we did to salary and benefit numbers, we're not increasing the expenditures any more than that, but the lower revenues are making that increasing the amount of those transfers from the general fund to cover the deficits in those funds 206, 207, and 208, which again is at-risk, English learner, and GATE funds, not necessarily in that order. Any questions so far?
Any questions, or want to keep going?
Yeah, so question kind of covered the general fund and then also our PCFP fund. So any questions specific to that? Okay. Just kind of a quick perusal of the rest of the funds. Our adult education funds just had some nominal changes. We did budget those down to 0, which is our standard practice, so that every dollar that we have available there is budgeted. We've had a small amount left over the previous years that would carry forward for those funds. Other changes, state grant funds, again, nominal changes there. These funds are managed through ePage, which is the state's software that kind of assists us with approval and the process and the flow of information back and forth between our finance department, our grants fund, and the NDE and their grants team. And these funds, they're self-augmenting, so as we have funds become available or change to us throughout the year, we can adjust this fund in Fund 240. Special education funds are, again, nominal changes there. Usually by December, we have a pretty good fill of our staff vacancy. If we're switching funds over that would be going to salary and benefits for staff to contractors who are providing those same services. So the December update's really important for that fund. Other changes are local grants. This is kind of similar to the state grants fund. They're self-augmenting, really nominal changes from the tentative budget to the final in that fund. The same thing for federal grants. These are very similar to our state grant funds, just different funding source, and we can self-augment those throughout the year as well. And all of those budget changes are managed through ePage. If we're going to change how we spend it, we submit a request through ePage, and then NDE works their magic with it and says yes or no. And that sometimes can go back and forth 3 or 4 times or more as they say, we don't like this, or we don't like the description of this. And when it's all said and done, they're happy with what we provide them, and we provided them what they've asked, and it works out. Our nutrition services fund, Fund 290, from the tentative to the final budget, nominal changes there. I would expect some wild changes between the final budget and the final amended budget, just since we're working with a completely different set of circumstances and we have no historical data to kind of guess and help us prepare our estimates. So as you know, with universal free funding ending for school lunch, it's going to look very different this year. And so I would expect some adjustments in that fund during our December amendment. Our capital projects fund, we covered those pretty good in the previous board meeting item. They have been updated to match the CIP that was presented in item number 14. So a debt services fund, real nominal changes there just to reflect the most recent data that we have. And again, that's, we kind of discussed that. That's where that pay-as-you-go funding would be available if we choose to do something with that, which again, currently we're just letting that build. And if we change from that, we'll certainly let you as board members know. Alrighty, so that's kind of everything. Items that I anticipate affecting the amended budget, final amended budget in December is just our enrollment comparison, what we've budgeted to what our actuals at that point. We'll have a better idea of where we'll be sitting for the year. Our actual staff cost versus estimated. We've done a lot of work. Mr. Fueling's been very educational in helping me learn more about his systems and coming up with very, very accurate estimates for that. But by about October, we kind of know who we have. We know if we're replacing a retiring teacher with 30 years with someone else who has 28 years and costs are about the same, or if we replace them with someone fresh out of college and our cost to us is less. So those will affect it. Again, as we're stepping down from the ESSER funds, that could affect our final amended budget. And the nutrition fund I just mentioned, we'll have a couple of months of at least new data that we have that we can kind of see if we're close on our estimates there, or if we need to make large adjustments or small adjustments. And then any other fund will certainly analyze that and make adjustments to that point. So any questions?
Thank you for all the work you do on this. As I went through this afternoon, I looked at Fund 279, the co-curricular activities, 910, I guess it is. But there's a line item in there for purchase services. Final approved is 1.5 million, which went up from 504,000. I'm wondering what is the purchase services?
So the Fund 279 is our student activity funds. I don't know, 4 or 5 years ago, believe it was GASB 84 required us to actually budget for those in this budget document, where prior to that, we did not have to. What that represents is each school has their student activity funds, and that collective amount we need a budget for. So essentially, we want to guess high there and say, hey, we're going to spend this amount of money. Because if we spend more than what we guessed for, then we end up with a budget violation. So we've just kind of upped that because as we're coming out of COVID and there's more and more activities being put back online, we anticipate that spending to increase. So that number is what we represent as kind of a high water mark for what we think we would spend in a year. It very well would be less than that. And if it's less than that, then no big deal because those funds roll from one year to the next.
Is that money that they're collecting, is what you're saying, or?
Yeah, so that's any
So
student
like the
account.
football games, when you go and you pay for the football game?
Not ticket sales, but the football fundraisers, any school club, those funds are going to be collected and managed through those student activities funds.
So it's
and
not
so-
really coming out of our general fund, so to speak?
Yeah,
Okay.
doesn't touch general fund dollars at all.
Thank you.
So, and it's just higher because we anticipate more spending as life's getting closer to normal than it was.
So when I started looking on page 5, and it states that, so we estimate, so the actual employee count and the teacher count for 2023, we said 935 employees, 430 classroom teachers. And then we subtract for our estimate in 2024, we propose that we're going to be 18 employees less. And when you go down and you see that we're 120.2 students less. Okay, so it makes sense that we're estimating less students, so we're going to estimate less employees. But then when you go from 2024 to 2025, we estimate that we're going to be 334.8 students less, but we're going to be plus 24 employees and minus 4 classroom teachers. Why would we add employees if we're losing students? And what are we estimating those employees are going to be?
So Mr. Fueling assisted in developing that number, so.
One of the frustrating things is that we don't have great guidance on how to come up with these numbers. And so when you're looking at that 941 number, that is what we are budgeting for. We have 941 benefited employees. I think the 917 at the time, and this, I'm not sure, I can't remember when we actually pulled that number, was the actual employees, not counting vacancies. So we have a certain number of vacancies happening there. So it's not a great answer to it, but if I ask the Department of Taxation how to generate that number, there's no response. There's nothing, like no guidance document on how to generate some of these things. So I don't know that it's right or wrong, and but at a point in time that we had 917 people that were actively on staff and working for us, even though we were budgeting for a higher number.
So when you look at that, then 914 employees for 426 are classroom teachers, but we have less enrollment. What is that doing to the overall salaries and benefits for, the general budget?
Where you're saying where we're only down 4 teachers from what we were at that snapshot point in time that's reflected in the middle column?
Yeah.
Okay, so clearly if, if we continue to go down and we maintained our teacher ratio like that, our class size would get smaller, which would be a desirable thing, but also that comes with a cost. So as we get a better handle for what our enrollment will be next year, that's where we can kind of adjust and see, do we need to change our staffing numbers so that we can afford the classroom ratios that we have, or can we continue where we're at? So for this year, we've kind of continued without making any sort of drastic cuts, because we've determined we can afford that. It's going to cost us about $900,000 of deficit if everything shakes out exactly how we think it would. But that would keep us where we're at. And then the end of this year, we would be looking additionally again to see, okay, where is our enrollment really at? And do we need to adjust our staffing to keep those classroom ratios where we want them to be, but also in an affordable range for the district? Does that answer your question?
Thank you. So then on page 6, we're looking at, the special education you went over, and thank you. It looks as though for like local grants, were the total fund resources has went down 2.5 million from what we had in the last year's budget. And then also, if you would address the federal grants, was a reduction of 4 million.
So the local grants, the previous budget, we have some bright, shiny electric buses that were funded through that local grant fund. Currently, we don't have those available. We're exploring some options to look at some funding sources to get more electric buses. At the same time, we're also finally getting some road testing of our electric buses to make sure that they'll work for our fleet before we go deeper down that rabbit hole. So that's the large difference there, is the cost of 4 electric buses and some infrastructure was in that fund, and that's why it's so much higher than it is this year. Currently, that's not available to us, so it's not on that budget. Again, this is self-augmenting, so if that did become available, then we could adjust this budget to account for new funding that's available to us to get electric buses, if that were to happen at some point in time during FY25. For the federal grants, very similar situation. The difference is our ESSER funding was in that federal grant funds, and that's tapered off.
That's what I kind of expected at the federal, but the local. Okay, thank you. And then for the capital projects, what I estimated, through our conversation through email this afternoon, is that there's approximately what was proposed from, in the capital projects from last year to this year was about a $750,000 rollover. Would that be reflected right here on page 6 is the rollover? The stuff that we had mentioned that wasn't spent last year that would have rolled over to this year.
So,
and is that in this what we have in front of us?
Generally what we have is, so everything that we're spending in this current year, if there's budget authority left over, that does roll over, but we don't really see it or actualize it until the December budget when our audit is complete and we have audited numbers to do that. So we've given our best guess, but there's a high likelihood for the Carson bathroom project that we've got 1.9 million encumbered to spend this year, that we won't use all of that by July 1. It's really just it'll depend on a couple of things, how much work they get done. And the second thing is, what did they invoice us for as of June 30th? Because they might actually have more work done by then, but they didn't invoice it until July 20th. And so that cutoff in the middle makes it really kind of a mess to determine what do we have. So we just find that line that's going to allow us to not inhibit our projects, not say, hey, I'm sorry, you can't start this project till July 1. And then they say, well, I can't do it, and that's short of a time frame. So we want to have enough budget authority to get those things rolling, but then not lock up so much that we've used everything that we have available to us in FY23 and need to figure out something to do before we have audited numbers to bring that forward.
Thank you for the explanation. And then when we look at the 65 contracts that we have out there, which I think is $1.4 million, do we try to annually renegotiate, try to consolidate, put out for bids annually? Sorry, that it's page 90.
Page
90?
Yeah.
Online, it's 90 of 127. Because I see in here that we have a lot of duplicating contracts, whether it be physical therapy services, behavioral therapy, occupational therapy. We have a lot of duplicating that go to different entities, different, independent contractors or businesses. And how do we look at that annually, because there's 65 of, it shows that the contracts that we have out there, and it, like I mentioned, it equates to 1.4 million.
Mhm. So this list again just kind of reflects a snapshot of, when we pulled this data, who did we have a contract with and for how much at that point in time? Our grants department, even though it's not all these are grants funded, does a wonderful job of maintaining all of those. And so depending on which a lot of these are occupational therapy, speech therapy, student-centered services that if we can't get an employee, we've got obligations to provide these services to these students, and at that point in time, we turn to a contractor. So we follow all the rules we're supposed to, and our special education department does a lot of the negotiating with those contracts. And some of these individuals, even they were once our employee, and they've decided, you know what, I'm not going to be an employee anymore. I'm going to go into business for myself and provide the same service I did you as your employee as a contractor. I've seen a lot of that over working through 2 districts in this area. So we do look at these, we do kind of look and see, sometimes we're under the gun to where we could face some sort of sanctions because we aren't providing services to our students that we're supposed to. So we get what we can in place at that point. And then we do, Christy Lennox does a very good job of managing all of these services, making sure that we're not too heavy. And a lot of these contracts too are written as give an hourly amount for an up to 2,000 hours a year. And they're billed on an hourly basis. So if they don't go up to that 2,000 hours, we only bill them, or they only bill us for the services that were provided. If they provided 1,600 hours for the year, that's what we paid them for, even though we have a contract for up to 2,000. So these amounts on here reflect that maximum amount it could be. There are some cases where we don't do that, although generally a lot of these, especially the OTPT services, are in high demand, and it's common for them to provide all the hours that we stated for that contract initially.
And then lastly, then are we obligated to go out to bid annually for the services, or is that not after like a certain amount, like 10,000 or 25,000? If that contract is, then are we obligated?
Yeah, since these are all professional services, we don't have to follow those
Okay.
bid. We do follow good guidelines and good practice, but we don't have to do an RFP for those. Any further questions for this most exciting budget item?
Mike?
I'll move that Carson City School District Board of Trustees adopt the final budget for fiscal year 2024-2025 by approving the resolution and transmittal letter, and further instruct the Director of Fiscal Services to file the necessary documents to comply with NRS Chapter 354.
Second.
Motion, second by trustee Crossman. Any further board discussion? Seeing none, any public comment on this item? Seeing none. Board, all those in favor? Any opposed? Okay, motion carries.
Thank you as well for the questions.
Yeah, thank you, Spencer. We appreciate it. There's always so much that goes into these things that it's a bunch, but we appreciate it. We're going to move on to item 16, discussion on possible action to cancel the July 9, 2024 school board meeting. This is for possible action. And we had some conversations back and forth about, the need or interest in canceling one of the meetings, and we couldn't do one in May for reasons we just learned tonight, and we've got a lot of business going on in June. So that's kind of, I don't know, like, where'd he go?
So moved?
So anyway, so this is for possible action? Yeah.
Yeah, so I move to cancel the July 9th school board meeting.
Perfect. Do we have a second? Second. Thank you. Any further board discussion? Any board discussion? Seeing none, any public comment on this item? Seeing none, all those in favor? Aye. Aye. Any opposed? Okay, motion carries. Item 17, approval of the consent agenda for possible action. Motion and a second. Board discussion? Seeing none. Public comment on this item? Seeing none. All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Okay, motion carries. Item 18, informational items for discussion only, no action. Just a reminder, since it's tomorrow, tomorrow is the Pioneer Academy graduation for anybody that can make it, 6 o'clock at the community center. Any questions or comments about informational items? Seeing none, we'll move on to item 19, requests for future agenda topics. Do we have any requests? Seeing none, we're,
I may have something.
in the 11th hour.
I'm sorry.
No, you're good.
The update on the superintendent goals, when are they due? Because I thought we talked about maybe doing it every quarter to kind of keep us updated and see where we're at. So that may be something we want to look at.
No. Yeah, okay. So yeah, that's the plan for June. Any other questions? Okay, we're adjourned. Thank you.